are these people?
This doctor in northern Gaza, Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya, that is clearly something that's happening where the international community is standing up, speaking out, and saying there's something wrong here. I mean, not like all of everything that's happened in Gaza isn't something wrong here, but this is beyond the pale. I mean, they've already destroyed the entire healthcare system effectively in Gaza. They were in one of the final, makeshift hospitals that was operating is Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya. All right. A doctor who performed his son's funeral prayer and then returned to care for his patients. It is our duty to not forget him. Totally agree. All right. You sent me a video from Eva Bartlett that she had put up about him, that he is a director of Kamal Adwan Hospital in northern Gaza, recently arrested by the Israeli invading forces. And we'll show the picture in the video. A man of great humanity. Okay, his colleague implores the world to stand with Dr. Hussam, who says he stayed with them even when the Israelis were yelling at him. He refused to leave his staff, didn't do so willingly, but by force. Then they show him like getting in the tank, or you see that on another video.
حسام الصفية اعتقلوه من مدرسة البخورة بعد أن بقي معنا ولن يخرج، مع أنه قالوا له يعني اخرج أنت حر، قالوا ما بترك الطاقم الطبي، أخذنا وجينا نطلع بالليل، بعدين زعقوا عليه واعتقلوه. رجل إنسانية نناشد كل العالم كل مؤسسات حقوق الإنسان بأن يقفوا بجانب الدكتور حسام أبو صفية، الرجل العظيم، الرجل الذي زرع بنا وفي قلوبنا الصبر لكي نصبر في شمالنا الصابر. والله ما خرجنا من شمالنا إلا غصبا، بكينا دم على أبواب مستشفى شمال عدوان حينما خرجنا غصبا من قبل جيش الاحتلال. حسام أبو صفية اعتقل.
I mean, so you had this happen. He fought an army alone. This is now becoming a very famous picture.
What a crazy image, dude.
Of him staring down.
I think Prime did a depiction of that. That was pretty good. There's
several. I saw several works of art that were depicting that. So that's Eva's take on it. Then we have Sana Saeed, who was formerly of AJ Plus, now independent. Follow her all over. She's on Substack, she's on Twitter, she's on Instagram primarily. Sana Face. They said Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya to stay Taman, where they raped Dr. Adnan al-Bursh to death. This was this was on New Year's Eve. That's where we have video footage of IDF soldiers raping a Palestinian man, leading to the Israeli riots and the Knesset debates over the right to rape Palestinians, which is insane. That's where they also, female IDF soldiers, rape Palestinian men. It's a torture camp. We saw him plead to the world for 84 days to protect his besieged hospital and patients. We saw him walk up to an Israeli tank, try to plead again for his patients, get arrested, and be sent to a torture camp. Yes, Palestinian healthcare workers are brave, but what has forced them to be brave is what should force us to hang our heads in shame. Yeah, absolutely. And then we even have Sharon Zhang. Again, we're only going to the best of the best here, who reported the day before that they had seen him there, and that he was beaten until his eye was bleeding. All right, again, Sharon Zhang over at Truth Out. They abducted and carried out a massacre in the hospital last week. I believe after they took him, they set the building on fire, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, something like that.
A camp likened to Guantanamo Bay for Israeli soldiers. Horrific treatment of detainees there. Without charges. They'd either seen and recognized him or heard his name being read out.
Probably
That's
more similar to
CNN.
Abu Ghraib.
Yep. Not a fun story, obviously. All right, and the Israeli military has killed at least 60 Palestinian detainees in their custody. I think it's a lot more than 60. Okay, they treated them really badly, especially the doctors. Now, I thought had a Geneva Convention that countries are supposed to follow. Apparently, that's no longer a thing. Right.
No, not for Israel.
Right. Israeli forces, of course, claimed without evidence that he was being held over suspicions that he is a member of Hamas. Why? Because he's a doctor who reports to the Hamas to the Gaza Health Ministry, which is run by Hamas. Everybody is Hamas. The UN is Hamas. We are Hamas. Everybody is Hamas. Same excuse used for nearly every Palestinian detainee. It's garbage. It's infuriating. It's a gaslight and a half.
What happens when they think the United States is full of Hamas? You know?
Well,
will they send their jackboots here too?
No, they don't need to, because they'll send Lavender AI with Where's Daddy, and they'll just drop bombs on people's houses. They'll start doing it, and Trump's not going to stop them.
How are those drones doing in New Jersey? You doing all right?
How about that? They seem to drop off the radar, huh?
Apparently.
All right. Images circulating online showed him walking toward the Israeli tanks in the wreckage of Israel's assault around Kamal Adwan. It was formerly the last operational hospital in northern Gaza. Basically, there are no... They said that basically anyone that moves in northern Gaza now is shot and murdered. And that everyone there is guilty automatically. Like, really? So we also saw somebody from Amnesty International say something, but I wanted to point this out. And this was the reason really why I brought this whole story, is not... It brings people together while this is awful and horrible. This doctor, Yipeng Ji, who was a family doctor in Ottawa, Canada, who had flown to Gaza, okay, I believe, but at the beginning of this month, I heard from Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya calling in from Gaza during a Doc Stop Genocide meeting. He spoke about the conditions in northern Gaza and the medical cases he and his team were seeing at Kamal Adwan Hospital, including witnessing and experiencing the targeted and deliberate attacks on civilians and many healthcare workers. So he put this picture up with the hashtag, and what it started was a movement of healthcare workers doing this. All right. So Sarah Wilkinson, famously detained by UK under Section 12.
Yep.
All right. She compiled a 2-minute video of more healthcare workers doing this. Well, let me just back this down so you can see it all. Scroll up. Healthcare staff across the world call for the immediate release of Kamal Adwan Hospital Chief Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya. And let's play this.
Release Dr. Hussam! 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 Release Dr. Hussam now! 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 Release Dr. Hussam now!
Like, this is just not a few people.
Dr. Hussam now! Release Dr.
Is my point.
Release
that this many people who work in healthcare are doing this?
Release Dr. Hussam now!
Are you even aware?
Dr. Hussam now! Doctors are not a target! Doctors are not a target!
Neither are journalists, but doctors.
Doctors are not a target!
Especially, yep.
Doctors are not a target! Doctors are not a target! Doctors are not a target! Healthcare is not a target! Healthcare is... Stop torturing doctors! Stop torturing nurses! Release Dr. Hussam!
No, Dr. Nick, he is not. To my knowledge, at least.
Release Dr. Hussam! Release Dr. Hussam! Release Dr. Hussam! Release Dr. Hussam!
Positivity, Elon. Go fuck yourself.
Release Dr. Hussam! Hospitals are...
What is that?
Dr. Hussam!
What's that in Kill Bill, the crazy 88s? See the crazy 38s, bro. Don't worry about it.
That's right.
You know?
Not enough people are talking about it. I'm glad we are, at least. We're going to talk about this. All right. Here's another of the same 2-minute video. Okay. I didn't realize it was the same one. Terrible. Here's a few of the actual, the people that were in that video. Here's Dr. Jem Newman, family medical resident. I call for the immediate release of Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya and his colleagues. He was abducted. Calling for the protection of hospitals and medical workers in Gaza and end to the genocide. And this is just...
Or...
Yeah.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!
Not a target. Pick from nearly 10 years ago when America bombed Kunduz MSF hospital, killing 42 patients, staff, and visitors. But remember, this happened October 7th. This started then, right, everyone? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, dude.
Mary Kostakidis, famous Australian independent journalist and friend of, she's a Consortium News board member. Amnesty sounds the alarm as IDF denies arresting him, saying he's been disappeared.
Of course.
Right? So, and that was the other thing that I wanted to mention was that the IDF, again, starting 3 days ago, denied that they had him at all in custody. Despite clear documentation of his arrest, the Army officially informed us today that it has no indication of the arrest or detention of the director of Kamal Adwan Hospital. He just disappeared like a fart in the wind. This dude literally went back to work after they didn't take him.
Wasn't me.
And the garbage that's been narrative that's been coming out of course, again, Hamas. Out of the Israeli side is, well, he was a terrorist. He was helping the terrorists. Well, by fixing up the sick babies, he was a terrorist.
Terrorism, terror organization, terrorist attacks, terrorism, terrorist network, terrorist attacks, terrorist group, terrorists, terrorist, terror, terrorists,
Thanks,
instruments of
Stubbs.
terror,
Thanks,
terror
Stubbs.
network, terror cells, terrorists, terrorizing terror and murder.
They can go fuck
Terrorizing
themselves.
terror.
The last thing for this segment that I wanted to bring was a poem that I saw the other day by V. McKenna. And it's titled "They Shoot Horses, Don't They?" They're shooting horses
in the Gaza Strip. They're shooting anything that moves at all. They shoot until they have an empty clip, and then reload their guns and shoot a wall. They're shooting little kids right in the head, even cripples limping with a crutch. They're wasting ammo on the living dead and laying waste to everything they touch. They're shooting ghosts. They even shoot their own, those hostages they claim to care about. They film their crimes by shooting with a phone, the spectacle of what they're wiping out. Wondering, is this all really true? Do they shoot horses? Yes, of course they do.
Yeah.
Huh?
They of course they do, and we've seen that too. We've seen those videos of them of the horse literally just collapsing.
Yeah.
Like attached to a wagon,
Really?
and then down to yeah. Sorry for the heaviness, everyone, but not enough people are still talking
happening.
about this. You know, it's still happening. And because of that,
my
we
thing is,
are
like, I'd love to not have to do heavy stuff every week, but turns out the world still is pretty heavy, you know?
well, and
like, until it's not.
but this is one of the things that all those psyops are trying to distract you from actually paying attention to and focusing on. And it's just like,
that's why it's all about now positivity and love and information and education. No, it's not. Like, for whom? You know?
Yeah. Shout out to everybody out there that's live watching us. Hi, how are you? Love you all. Again, Happy New Year. Boats will be back. Yes. Boats is going to be back on the Ocho. Yep. We're doing it on the Ocho. We'll talk about the Ocho later.
The Ocho for now.
Okay, old man, yeah, we'll do it on both. But I think actually on Rumble we can only do it on one channel, so we're gonna, I think, put it to the Ocho. Whatever. We'll just the link is the same. It doesn't matter which channel it ends up at. You know, we can move it back and forth. Anyway, that's the way Rumble works. Angel, the Zionists are using their holy book as justification with their atrocities, just like some other people did to Jewish people during World War II. Yes, absolutely. Cynic is in the house. Hi, Cynic. You should not be here. I think you should be here. I love you, and I'm glad you are if you still are. Yes, go start. 41 kids a day murdered, 100 plus Palestinians a day genocide, and we know it's not about the hostages. We're going to talk a little bit more about what's going on in Palestine, but more from a narrative management perspective. Man, that poem really got me. That just freaking beat the crap out of me. So, like I said, the reason why
Meanwhile, at the Legion of Doom,
covering stuff like that is why we get demonetized. That is a new gold bar at the top of the screen, Dr. Nick. That is correct, yes. It is support the media you want to see. We were able to, over the Christmas break, clear enough to pay off Zago and finish that project. So thank you to everybody that actually made that happen. And now we are just trying to fund the network and cover our annual expenses, which is close to about $2,000. And then we can start doing some really fun stuff. So thank you to everybody for making that happen. Yep, we had some new people just in the last week or so. Appreciate everyone hanging out on Friday night for American Tradition, where we reran the live walkthrough of what was it, Black Site. Yeah, so that was a good time. Maybe we'll do Extremist next week. Maybe we'll do that. But we're supposed to do a live show tomorrow.
It's American Tradition.
Tuesday night. Yeah, we're gonna do a live show, so that'll be Friday night. Tyler Russell, thank you so much. If you're listening, watching, or if you're around, annual subscriber to INN newsletter, and you can see I changed that at the bottom. Cash App, Ko-fi, PayPal, and INNnewsletter.com are the ways to support, subscribe, and hook it up.
are these people?
Oh, we're gonna play a speech that actually got me. When I was on the phone, when I was hanging out last night with Oz and Reef, and I kind of put the headphones on, and it was just me listening to it, and he said something at the end that just absolutely crushed me. And he's right. And what had happened here was that a Palestinian journalist by the name of Abubaker gave a 3.5 minute or almost 4 minute press conference. And Mary Kostakidis, friend, who's a Consortium News board member, writes, wrote a speech. Every journalist in the world should listen to this, and we're going to in a second.
And how old is this young man?
Oh, he's a teenager. Maybe 16, 17, 18. You can see he's incredibly young.
Yes.
Let me blow that up a little bit more so you can see it even clearer. And he says, I have a word to say against the lack of international support for Palestinian journalists. He writes for the he reports for the Electronic Intifada, by the way, as well. So shout out to 2024 honoree for one of the best outlets, Electronic Intifada. Thank you for sharing Abubaker, Abed, with us. And listen to this.
These are not my words, but the words of every single one here, standing here after 459 days of the most well-documented and first live-streamed genocide in history. For these days, we've been reporting tirelessly, extensively, and thoroughly on this genocide. It's indeed a genocide against us, which we've been documenting in makeshift tented camps and workplaces. They are really the places we've taken shelter since day one. You've seen us shedding tears over our loved ones, colleagues, friends, and family members. You've seen us killed in every possible way. We've been immolated, incinerated, dismembered, and disemboweled, and recently we've been freezing to death. What more ways should you be seeing us killed in so that you can move and act and stop the hell inflicted upon us? There are no words to describe what we've been going through, because you've seen our bodies, how they've become fragile, skinny, and fatigued. But we never stopped. We never stopped to tell you the truth, to narrate our stories, and to tell you that we are being genocided, to move your dead consciences, to help a population that has seen every sort of torture and tasted every type of death. Today, we're all standing here after Israel's impunity against us. And we don't know how many journalists should be killed so you can really act and stop Israel's impunity against us. Our message is very clear. We are journalists, and we are Palestinian journalists. We have been let down by the international community, particularly the international media organizations. We haven't seen any sort of support, a single word of support. Even the press vests we're wearing right now mark us as a target. They do not protect us at all. But yes, because we are Palestinians, maybe if we were Ukrainians or of any other citizenship with blonde hair and blue eyes, the word would rage and rant for us. But because we are Palestinians, we have only one right, which is to die and be maimed. Finally, we are just documenting a genocide against us. It's enough after almost a year and a half. We want you to stand foot by foot with us, because we are like any other journalists, reporters and media workers all across the globe, no matter the origin, the color or the race. Journalism is not a crime. We are not a target.
Shit. I had to show that. Man, that kid's a legend.
This is the age where you should be giving valedictorian speeches or school president acceptance speeches, or, you know, your presentation to a classroom. Not this. You know?
I mean, what do you even say to that?
Who are these people?
I mean, what I say is, I'm so sorry. Journalism is not a crime. You're completely right and justified. It's disgraceful. It's shameful. It's horrifying to see it. We've been fighting the ideology of Zionism every day. They purchased or nullified all the Western politicians of any substantive power. And we deeply appreciate the Intifada for publishing your work. And one of the likes here was Abubaker. He saw it. So, fuck Israel for this shit. For making him do this. Brutal. Sorry, everyone, but this just killed me. He got me. If you're able to, I hate to beg for money, like from that and everybody else that's in rough shape, and buy some merch at the Indie News shop. Sure, you know, scrolling across the bottom, he's about to break me. Journalism is not a crime. That kid killed me. He really got me. I mean,
yep.
So I'm sorry, everybody, for doing that to everyone. That's what I'm seeing in my world. That's what. Unfortunately, we can't turn that off. We can't bury our heads in the sand and forget about it, because these people are actually suffering.
We're sorry.
But there are so many struggling and suffering out there, and to turn a blind eye to it and ignore it because we're good, or because we're we have too much on our own plates to deal with. We can't. We gotta keep our eyes open and our heads on a swivel, and that's what I'm gonna keep doing. And I love you all, and it's just this was a tough week.
Who are these people?
What happened in Gaza? You know, apparently there was a ceasefire agreement that was signed. We're still getting tentative and kind of details of what was in that ceasefire agreement. Yeah. So I rely on the electronic Intifada to tell me what's happening on the ground, because they have people in Gaza right now. And God, look at that photo. And that was from APA Images. All right. And that was on January 16th. That was just the other day that picture was taken. All right. In the lead up to the ceasefire announcement Wednesday, and in the hours following, Israel, of course, carried out massacres and campaigns of further destruction across the Gaza Strip. And so this is Nora Barrows-Friedman over at the Electronic Intifada, another Indie Media Award honoree. All right. Israel escalates airstrikes on Gaza in the lead up to the ceasefire. So they announced the ceasefire is going to happen Sunday, and all of a sudden now you see an escalation of further bombings and further attacks everywhere. And it was harrowing and frightening and horrifying to read the witness accounts of. All right. The more we hear about a potential ceasefire, the higher the pace of attacks, the more families are being targeted and killed. Approximately 60 Palestinians were killed in a series of attacks just hours before the deal was reached. And then there was like hundreds in the 5 or 6 days afterwards. All right, here. In the early hours of Thursday, Anas al-Sharif reported 30 Palestinians were killed in Gaza City a few hours after the ceasefire deal was announced. So right there, just 60 plus 30, that's 90. All right, that's just in 2 reports. Right? And then here you've got the attacks continued. The Palestinian Ministry of Health in Gaza said on Thursday, since the ceasefire deal was announced, 72 people were killed. All right, so that number went from 30 to 72. All right, plus the 60, so now you're at 132 minimum. That's just what's been reported. All right, now, you know this guy, he's dancing in the streets right now, believe it or not. He brought me to tears last week or 2 weeks ago, and wow, the death toll, you know, he's reporting on it, and these people would have been celebrating if the ceasefire had been signed off on earlier today. Maybe, but we know that this is what they're doing. They're escalating attacks. So on the 14th of January, they bombed a shop along the coastal road in Deir al-Balah. That sparked a fire driven by strong sea winds, quickly spread to engulf makeshift encampments for displaced people. Was that intentional? I don't know. It certainly happened, and 67 families lost all their belongings as their tents were destroyed in the fire. After they've already, again, had to drop everything and run how many times already so far?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, they're losing what, 67 kilometers, even with the deal or something like that? Like square miles or something like that of Gaza?
That's all of North Gaza, basically, where Israel's cut it off.
Yeah.
And they're already starting to bulldoze and level and clear.
Right where a canal wanted to go through.
How about that?
So, funny how that works.
Right. So, Al Jazeera correspondent said on January 15th that Israeli vehicles were beginning to bulldoze the western side of the Indonesian hospital, which was completely rendered out of service last month. So not only, you think they're going to rebuild it for the Palestinians? I doubt it. Maybe because it's Indonesian, it's international, but I don't know. So again, there's a lot to this. Update on Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya. This is also important. He's apparently been extended his stay, or whatever they want to call his imprisonment, through the 15th of February, transferred to Ophir prison on January 9th. During a video appearance at his hearing, all right, I haven't seen this one, in Ashkelon, all right, he seemed to show no apparent signs of torture, physical deprivation, or malnutrition. That's a good thing. However, a video alone cannot fully picture his condition. The lawyer urgently needs to meet him in person, which they blocked him from doing. All right. And he's barred him from meeting even with a lawyer until January 22nd. And he is to be held at least until February 15th, is from what I've seen.
Yes, the only democracy.
Yes, the only democracy in the Middle East. That's right.
Yes.
Because he wouldn't leave the hospital when they ordered him to.
No due process.
Nope.
That place.
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
You know this lady, Fiorella Isabel?
Mm-hmm.
She wrote a pretty long Substack article on her, fiorellaisabel.substack.com, about this ceasefire agreement and the fact that there is a nefarious catch. All right.
Please, Fee, come on.
Yeah, well, she's going to lay it out. You've never known Fee to sugarcoat anything. We've known her a long time.
Other than snickerdoodles, sugarcoat those. Yeah.
Well, you're supposed to, but but she says it took 15 months of genocide for the U.S. and Israel to seriously consider a ceasefire deal to end the ethnic cleansing of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. According to Qatar's Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman, who met individually with Israeli and Hamas negotiators, the deal will come into effect on Sunday. It's not yet fully official as Israel's security cabinet and government have to approve it by Thursday, which they did. And right now, Netanyahu has halted the process, which he has tried to do the entire time. Not surprisingly for many, but even if this does continue, it's not what's been put out in the media. What a shock, right? So tell us, Fee, what's happening? As many Western pundits and activists patted themselves on the back, and Palestinians rightfully celebrated a respite from the bombs, hunger, and violent death, Israeli airstrikes continued on Wednesday, killing, like we said, 77 in Gaza since this premature announcement. And while the plans were put in place during the Biden administration, Trump has also taken credit, much accolade, and it's become a jarring game as to who should be the most praised for the featured delusional tweets. Suggest that Trump be given a Nobel Prize, while the one vital question most have failed to ask remains: why now? So before she dives into that, let's look at the 3 phases and multiple causes in this plan. The first phase will last 42 days and focus on the release of 33. Weird enough. I mean, that there's no significance to that number at all. 33 Israeli hostages. All right. Where are we here? 33 Israeli hostages, including women, children, and men over the age of 50, living or dead. American hostages Keith Siegel and Sagui Dekel Chen are among 2 of the people to be released in the first phase. And we've seen video about 3 of them. All right. In exchange, during the 42-day second phase, all right, Israel would release 30 Palestinian prisoners for each civilian hostage and 50 for each female soldier, involving the declaration of sustainable calm. All right. Hamas would continue to free remaining male hostages, soldiers, or civilians in exchange for a yet-to-be-negotiated number of Palestinian prisoners and a full withdrawal of Israeli troops from the Gaza Strip. Okay. According to the plan, there would also be a focus on humanitarian assistance for Gaza. We saw trucks starting to flow in today from the Rafah Gate. A supposed end to fighting and displaced Palestinians would begin returning home as more aid enters the Strip. Again, all that means is that we're now getting back to pre-October 7th conditions. But their homes are completely leveled. And they have to basically start all over from scratch again.
And that's if this holds, which likelihood of that is slim.
So the third phase involves the exchange of bodies of deceased Israeli hostages for bodies of deceased Palestinian fighters. All right, let me find that again. I just lost it. Here we go. Right there. There's also an alleged implementation plan for a 3 to 5 year reconstruction of Gaza in exchange for it to be carried out under international supervision, reiterating that the crossings for movement in and out of the area would be reopened. To whom?
Right.
Would the Palestinians have right of return? Would they finally get passports? No. I'll bet you the answer is no. Sorry. Look, stop the bombs and bring it back to where it was. Okay, at a bare minimum. All right.
Yep.
There are also several clauses and parts to the agreement. Right. The first, as mentioned, calls for the complete withdrawal of the Israeli forces to the borders from all areas of the Gaza Strip. There should also be the opening of the Rafah crossing and the complete withdrawal from it. As of now, aid trucks have begun coming in already, Israel must also facilitate the travel of the wounded for treatment abroad. Basic, like, Geneva Convention stuff. Right?
Yeah.
So that's from Al Mayadeen. All right. Then continuing on, Israel must specifically allow the entry of 600 aid trucks per day under the humanitarian protocol sponsored by Qatar, and must facilitate the entry of 200,000 tents and 60,000 caravans for immediate shelter. I hope that there are 200,000 families that need those tents in a way. Like, I hope that's not too much. They need more than that, even, because there are still that many left. I mean, I'm worried. I mean, a large-scale prisoner exchange should occur, including the release of 1,000 prisoners from Gaza and hundreds of detainees serving lengthy sentences. That's 1,000 prisoners from Gaza held by Israel. All right? Not like 1,000 prisoners in Gaza, but who were from Gaza, that were taken from Gaza to Israel, that are being held in Israeli prisons right now. Okay? So that's next. Then that's the tense. Then the 8th clause is that there's a prisoner exchange, right? Additionally, Tel Aviv should release all women and children. That's a given. Why wouldn't they be doing that, right? They're also to gradually withdraw from the Netzarim corridor and the Philadelphia route, though this part has not been agreed upon, and the AP claims that Hamas gave up on forcing Israel out of the corridor. Who knows? We know the AP are stenographers for the State Department. A vital component in this requires displaced residents to be allowed to return to their homes, at least, with guaranteed freedom of movement throughout the Gaza Strip. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for getting us back to pre-October 7th conditions. She says that would actually be an improvement to conditions before October 7th if it is to be implemented. I guess. After months of fear, hostile aircraft must vacate Gaza's airspace for at least 8 to 10 hours daily. So basically, UK can continue their spy flights for 12 to 14 hours daily? Or
well, and 8 to 10. So, like, the rest of the time, they can be there, too. Like,
that's my point. So basically,
at night, they could bomb at night.
While they refuel. No, that's just spy flights. Right. That's overflights.
Okay.
All right.
Hostile aircraft must vacate Gaza's airspace. That's 80. No?
Right.
80 aircraft? So...
right. Finally, all Gaza hospitals...
Does that count?
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Does that count drones? Do those count?
Hostile aircraft. So, yes.
Right.
So I would say yes.
You think? So I doubt that's what's going to happen, but we'll see.
They may be allowed to be there during the day, but they can't be there at night as they sleep, the way that they had been doing, dropping bombs on the houses as they sleep.
Yeah, the entire time. Right.
All right. Finally, this is a huge one. All hospitals in Gaza must be rehabilitated, and field hospitals, medical equipment, and surgical teams must be allowed entry.
Yeah.
I'll believe that when I see it. I sure hope that they allow for that, and that they allow for medical care and the documentation of just exactly how badly these people have been put through torture and the ringer, because that needs to be documented. So there is the description of exactly what we just talked about. All right. Here's what Fee says, is that my problem with this stems from the question I posed that a few are asking, why now? It's not my intention to take joy away from any stopping of the physical bombs and total extermination of Palestinians. Obviously, I, like many, welcome this. But I also must point out the reality that what's happened here is a distraction to pacify and delay the inevitable. Because this is a temporary ceasefire, according to everything we're seeing here.
According to Netanyahu himself, this is temporary.
For one, Israel has never respected any ceasefire and is under no obligation to do so because there's been zero consequence when it breaks its promises. That's absolutely right, Fee. No repercussions from the West or most of the non-aligned axis, the UN, or any international organization. Vocal condemnations do not stop bombs, and they've never halted Israel. 2, Tel Aviv's not even given us assurances. In fact, Netanyahu has threatened that Israel could use new military action to pressure Hamas in negotiations or could resume its violent military campaign. Which, didn't he say that? Yeah. Something that's likely to happen based on past behavior and the fact that there's little to stop them. And what's his name? Smotrich said again that they're moving forward. And Ben Gvir resigned, and yay, everybody celebrated for about 5 seconds and forgot about him. And he's replaced with another monster who's just as bad or worse. All right. But the plan still needing approval from Netanyahu's security cabinet and the full cabinet. I believe they got that. Smotrich is fuming, as are many Zionists on social media. But is that anything new? Yeah, why rely on the tried and tired performance art from politicians and the Israeli brigade? We're not. Mm-hmm. She says now supposedly Qatar, the U.S., and Egypt would provide guarantees that all the agreements are followed through. And how are they going to do that? The problem is that the U.S. funds Israel. Also,
all those countries you just talked about definitely had a hand in Syria's fall recently. So, there's some questions.
Well, that's what she's about to say here. Is that the problem is that the U.S. funds Israel's expansion and genocide. Egypt is controlled by the U.S., and Israel is to the point of closing the Rafah crossing and being unable to do anything within these last 15 months. All right. And Qatar has deep relations with the West, as well at the expense of Palestine and the axis of resistance. Again, I want to refer back real quick to the Ynet story that we covered last April that Vanessa Beeley had come out with.
No one else did.
That Gaza 2035 plan that basically is this. They want to turn it into international oversight by several Muslim/Arab nations that are friendly to Israel, part of the Abraham Accords and or controlled by Israel and the U.S., all right, UK, like Egypt, all right, and eventually but Israel will never give up control, ever. The plan is to never have Israel give up control, all right? So we're reading, again, this is Fiorella's article on fiorellaisabel.substack.com. Her take
was that the one where they had like the EV factories and stuff like that?
Yes.
They were trying to make a thing there?
Yes, they were going to
make like a whole architectural model.
Yep. That's the one where you didn't like the scale. You got mad at the scale.
Yeah, scale was all fucked.
It was very funny. You're like, hold, I can't take the scale. It was very funny. I just watched that again recently.
Yeah, because like cars were the same size as like buildings. Yeah, they completely botched that. Anyway.
So again, she says none of the Gulf states, including Jordan, have done much to help Gaza, and they've all been seen as traitors by much of the resistance. How could this be a fair exchange? It wouldn't be. Trump's being hailed as the one who reached a deal, and he's coming in with a very specific plan to look like the hero that makes America great again. But it looks like this has been the plan for a while, meaning that the Biden administration, under whom this genocide began, set out to end it now for a reason. Trump can gloat all he wants, and influencers trying to make Elon bucks on Twitter, X, can post cute tweets raving about his accomplishments. But this was clearly set in motion now for several reasons. It's not a Biden versus Trump mentality here, but rather the fact that one is set to continue the next phase of the same imperialistic and genocidal U.S. American foreign policy. Yes. Yes, Fee. That's right. That's absolutely correct.
And it's definitely not Biden crap either, which is the minute you say it wasn't Trump, people, we think it was Biden. No, idiots.
No, but this administration,
pay attention.
But they had negotiated a deal, basically this, A, 13 months ago, and then B, the framework of it was agreed upon in May, and they never pushed it through. Yeah. And then Trump sent somebody over and said, make this happen now or else. And look.
Yeah, I don't even know if that happened.
No, they did, but anytime that was on the table anytime anybody wanted to make that happen. Anytime. They just didn't want to make that happen. And that's what Fee's saying. All right. But for whatever reason, there are benefits. She's going to talk about that in a second. This brings her to Syria, which has now fallen with HTS terrorists, Israel and the U.S. All right. The three big architects of its demise, carving it up like a sack of meat at a butcher shop. Now Israel's free to continue its expansion into the region with little resistance, as Lebanon, which is fighting Tel Aviv itself and continues to pull bodies out of its own rubble from terrorist Zionist terror attacks, like the pager attack, and then they drop bombs on an entire city block. And we've been hearing about all the stuff that's been happening in Beirut, all of southern Lebanon.
I think Inlakash announced today that Turkey was also annexing areas of Syria.
Turkey was? No surprise.
Yeah.
All right, scratchy. But now they're left open, and HTS terrorists are reportedly aiming to reach the country very soon. That's nice. The Lebanese election brought an anti-Hezbollah victor. No surprise there after Hezbollah got them bombed for defending Gaza and trying to align with Yemen and create a coalition that could potentially stop what Israel is doing. All right. Who wants a relationship with Syria's new regime? Of course they do. All right. That leaves the country vulnerable to Zionist expansion, the Greater Israel Project, as we've been talking about. So, worth noting that Hezbollah has never only relied on the political wing, and it will continue fighting, but it's going to be more difficult because the former Syria, which used to provide an ally zone, is now Western-controlled and terrorist-filled. All right, so they don't have the buffer zone. They don't have another country that might align with and support them, other than maybe Iran. That's it.
Right.
And now she's about to talk about how we're going to tie up Iran too. The obvious elephant in the room is that the incoming Trump administration has the most Zionist cabinet in our history. Right? People who think Gaza should be flattened, told Netanyahu to finish the job, have I love Israel Twitter bios, I'm Israel Chai in their bio, right? And are not just Jewish, but Zionist, rabid, fundamental, disgusting fucking Zionists. I'll say it. She won't. She's a professional journalist. I will. All right. Who believe in Israel's right to all of the land in the region because of some 3,000-year-old bullshit that doesn't even exist. Not to mention millions in Adelson money, which is the real reason behind it. All right. This doesn't magically go away because of a highly politically manipulated deal. That's naive at best, self-destructive if we're being honest. Yeah. Something else that barely any media have mentioned is that Trump has flagrantly admitted that he would leverage the ceasefire agreement as a way to advance the Abraham Accords, the U.S. brokered agreements from his first term that established normalized relations between Israel and several Arab nations. As I mentioned above, it just so happens that two of the nations, being Qatar and Egypt, and who's the third one? It's Qatar, Egypt, and who else is the third one? It is. Maybe it was Qatar. The U.S. Well, I've heard it mentioned a couple ways. Yeah. Qatar is definitely part of the Abraham Accords. He's probably going to push Egypt into signing an Abraham Accord in some way. You know, he wants to position himself as this uniter of the Middle East, as his son-in-law sells waterfront property in Gaza. And that's what he's about to say. If this moves forward without major setbacks, the critical question of who will govern Gaza will be answered, as what's left of Palestine and Arab countries will effectively give Israel a carte blanche on the region, which is what they laid out in that 2035 plan.
I read Wednesday that the possibilities there are going to be the PA and or I think the UAE want to throw there.
That's Qatar.
Like, right. So,
all right.
Yeah.
So normalization means an Israeli takeover of full security guarantees for Israel, ensuring that the billions in reconstruction efforts works to usher in more territory for the Greater Israel Project. Right? They're not planning to reconstruct Gaza for Palestinians, but for them. Again, see Gaza 2035 plan. All right, and that's what I'm guessing she's going to quote here. But this whole thing, guarantee of security for Israel, also means no Palestinian state ever. That's also part of the plan. Never give the Palestinians their own state. All right. Additionally, Trump proposed a gift bag of incentives. He's such a deal maker. That's a nice way to say it. Including removing sanctions on Pegasus. Are you kidding me? Why would you remove sanctions on Pegasus?
Why not?
And offering protection to IOF soldiers accused of war crimes. Hell no on that one. No, they got to go before the Hague, and they have to stay in Israel for the rest of their lives. Anywhere they go, they should be prosecuted and arrested. They committed war crimes, and they did it on fucking TikTok. And you're not shutting it down now. By the way, Max Sarge, I saw you said TikTok go bye-bye. Not anymore. They brought it back today. That's not happening now. Trump's going to save it. Ha, ha, ha. Trump's going to save it again. Just like he's saving this. They're all lining up to cater to his ego to get what they want. They figured out a long time ago. The way you manipulate this guy, cater to his ego. Put his name all over it. Thank him. Give him credit even when he doesn't deserve it. He loves it. So yes, Israel has lost political power, public support, many soldiers, its reputation is in the toilet, and they failed to achieve their goal of eliminating Hamas. They've also destroyed their own reputation on the global stage, too. The UN is a joke to them. Everybody's voted against them except for the 2 or 3 protectors. But they've also killed hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, not received a single punishment, and instead garnered support from the West with little condemnation from the non-aligned Axis, save a few, under the excused mantle of Judaism for them and terrorism for Hamas. To blankly answer the earlier posed question, this is happening now because they needed Syria out, a weakened Axis, and a weakened non-aligned Axis for their required objectives. It's also no coincidence that we're seeing this all come with a change of face in the United States, while some long-planned foreign policy will still continue unabated. You mentioned the fact that Israel's been taking up more and more land in the occupied West Bank. We have, with the help of the Palestinian Authority, which he just talked about. It's only a matter of time before they fully control the entire thing, given the state of the region and the incoming logistics. Unless there's a miraculous united push to stop Israel and the U.S., which, looking at Syria, is unlikely. She's talking about Russia, if you haven't read between those lines. The only one that's really going to do it and push back is Russia, and they're tied up with Ukraine still. And they want to make a deal in Ukraine, so they're going to back the fuck off of this too and play ball. Plus, they'll offer them a little piece of this reconstructed zone just to keep them quiet. Watch.
Yeah.
They're going to participate in this crap. And maybe they'll even give their money to the Dagestanis, who then funnels it back to the Palestinians. Who knows? You know, Putin can be a benevolent king like that. I'm joking, of course. All right. She says, I keep mentioning Syria because what happened there is key. It's a linchpin for us all, especially analysts, to understand how our wishes do not reflect reality.
Yep.
Without Syria, things for the Axis have realistically become incredibly difficult and devastating. The major players appear to be building up to an era of normalization. Iran's President Pezeshkian isn't the only one in charge. Like we said, Iran, it all is going to hinge on Iran, all right? But his tendencies toward liberalism don't serve the resistance interests for the country or of the Axis and non-aligned Axis. All right? Axis is what she's talking about, Russia, China, Iran. The non-aligned Axis is the other countries, the Yemen, that aren't necessarily part of that coalition, I believe is what she's describing there. Am I correct? I think.
I do believe.
Iran is also vulnerable with the coming Trump administration. I would think so, especially because Elliot Abrams will likely be somewhere in the administration, as may be John Bolton, which is already vilified and accused it of everything from election interference to assassination attempts and bringing bombs across the border. Yep. All right.
Remember Khashoggi?
Oh, I do remember. He had his head chopped, if I remember correctly.
I do believe.
Thanks to Prince Mohammed bin Salman.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Again, this is Fiorella's article. It goes. It's almost done. This is the last paragraph. A ceasefire has long been necessary, but it should come with full assurances for Palestinians and involve the resistance, not Washington and the Gulf states, which facilitated this genocide to occur for as long as it has. I don't think that's realistic to expect that as long as they facilitated it, that they're not going to be involved in when it's ending. They're going to have to basically decide when they want to end it. This agreement on Israel's terms and Western constructed doesn't mean an actual end to the extermination of Palestinians, but a delay of it, and this time with legal backing. Yeah, I agree with that. Even an establishment of a second-class Palestinian state, which they're not doing, does not equate to freedom, because those who run the show will not be Palestinians. Agreed there too, they also will not provide them with full electricity, water rights, travel rights, and everything else that every other human being in every other civilized country in the world has, which the Israelis are obligated legally to provide because they don't allow them right of return and they're occupying them. Oh yeah, that's part of the Geneva Convention too. Nobody talks about that. All right. In summary, it's too early to tell what this ceasefire actually is, but what I see coming with any ceasefire the U.S. and Israel agree to is the return to pre-October 7th treatment of Palestinians while continuing a slow death of Gaza and a quicker takeover of the entire region. Well, it's not. I mean, I've seen that full return of Gaza. I thought you said something about 67 square whatever kilometers where they're going to keep northern Gaza, basically. All right. She says nothing
for
as
a
I
buffer
stated.
Zone.
Right. Nothing as I stated happens coincidentally, and timing is everything. After Syria, nothing is the same, and I don't exaggerate the level of betrayal we are seeing on many facets of the non-aligned axis. More will be revealed in due time, I'm sure, but for now, understand that none of this is happening in isolation, and those who seek power will never give it up willingly. God, that's such a great piece by Fee, really. That's awesome. And this should
she
have
covered a lot of this in her tweets Wednesday in our ceasefire stuff, but she added to it. So
yeah, this had a lot of stuff from Wednesday. And then I brought some other stuff here. Also, was that Robert Indelcash, after they announced it, that Netanyahu says he's not going to abide by it. So he also says he'll increase the number of soldiers in Philadelphia. That's nice. All right. And we're also going to go to Sanaa Saeed, formerly of Al Jazeera Plus, now independent on her own, views my own. All right. She says it's approaching Sunday in Gaza, the day the ceasefire is supposed to take effect. Between its announcement and now, Israel has killed hundreds of Palestinians, including entire families. There is such a profound pain in knowing that the last feeling hundreds of Palestinians experienced was hope, was relief. For those of us who have been bearing witness from afar, we will grieve alongside all those who remain. We will remain steadfast in the fight for their liberation. And I saw some photos and some videos of people coming home to literal like skeletons underneath rubble and some disgusting, horrible stuff. So while they're celebrating at the same time, they have to come home to some nightmarish stuff. Here is Vanessa sharing video that the Red Cross has told Al Arabiya that the condition of 3 female IOF hostages is good. The resistance took care of them while the Zionist regime was trying to kill them and slaughtering Palestinians. Compare this to the inhumane treatment, rape, torture, and ritual humiliation of Palestinians detained by Zionist sadists. And so this is
Did you see that they literally sent them home with gift bags?
Yes, I did.
Like,
yep.
I don't know. I doubt you're going to see many of these. I think that was part of the ceasefire deal, was like filming the releases was like not a thing. So that you didn't see, like, you're not allowed to talk to the hostages.
Yeah, we didn't see any. And I actually, funny enough, I actually posted, have we started seeing any video of Palestinian hostages being released today? That was earlier this afternoon. And sure enough, somebody earlier then messaged, replied there and said, yes, they started doing that. Sarah Wilkinson posted this woman, Khalida Jarrar, released, significantly changed in appearance, reflecting the suffering and neglect of Palestinian captives.
Right.
So thank goodness she's out, and that this is all happening, at least for now. You're not going to see that in a lot of places. I'll tell you right now, a breakdown like that. And I'm proud to do that, but that's why we get demonetized on places like YouTube. You can hook us up. Those places are the easiest and take the least fees. Cash App, Ko-fi, PayPal, and Substack. All right, at INN.
Who are these people?
But also, it appears that we are abandoning, quote unquote, Ukraine. Now, we know that it's not going to totally be. All right. We know that effectively what this means is that we're moving on. All right. And Zelensky is going to be a very sad boy. All right.
Maybe.
But
Maybe not.
I don't think that Trump wants war with Russia. I think that he's got hawks in his cabinet that do. He's got hawks around him that certainly do. All right. But it's official, according to Kit Clarenberg, U.S. is abandoning Ukraine. And the reason why he said this, and I will give credit also to our friend, the dissident, who wrote up a very similar article around the same time and published it about the Biden administration lying about the Ukraine proxy war, okay, that they knew that Ukraine would lose it from day one. And now we are admitting that and effectively moving on. So again, this is from Indie Media Award honoree Kit Clarenberg, class of 2022. One of the faves, friend of the show, friend of INN, friend of Misty's, friend of independent media in general. He's a good dude, and he's got great reporting. So what he says here was that on January 19th, Time Magazine published an astonishing article. All right. By the way, Active Measures is his podcast and his show with Alex Rubinstein, Clarenberg, and Rubinstein. If you have not seen that, you're missing out. Fantastic freaking show. Unbelievable. And I think they talked about this, but they're not the only ones. And that's why, I don't want them to be the only ones. So I want to give a shout out to Kit's work. So Time Magazine published the astonishing article, amply confirming what dissident anti-war academics, activists, journalists, and researchers have argued for a decade, that the U.S. always intended to abandon Ukraine after setting the country up for proxy war with Russia, and never had any desire or intention to assist Kiev in defeating Moscow in the conflict, let alone achieving any of its maximalist aims of regaining Crimea and restoring the country's 1991 borders. Yeah, right? All right. To have a major mainstream outlet finally corroborate this indubitable reality is actually a seismic development. All right, this is what KIT means. So, there's even more. The Time article's brief first paragraph alone is rife with explosive revelations. It notes that when the proxy war erupted in February 2022, then President Joe Biden set 3 objectives for the U.S. response, and Ukraine's victory was never among them. Oh, man, did they get played. Moreover, the phrase oft repeated by White House apparatchiks that Washington would support Kiev for as long as it takes was never meant to be taken literally. Instead, it was just intentionally vague news speak with no
vague news. I like that.
Right? Vague news, right? With
vague
no
news,
implied time frame. No implied time frame or even desired outcome in mind. What's a win? Eric Green, a member of his National Security Council who oversaw Russia policy, those guys did real well, states that the U.S. deliberately made no promise to Zelensky, Koki Smurf, to recover all of the land that Russia had occupied since the conflict's inception, and certainly not Crimea or even the breakaway Donetsk and Lugansk republics. Those are gone. Those are gone. Those were already determined, gone in February 2022. He said the White House believed doing so was well beyond Ukraine's ability, even with robust help from the West. It was well understood such efforts were not going to be a success story ultimately for Kiev if tried. That's a great quote. They were not going to be a success story ultimately. As a way to gloss that over. How many people would be murdered as a result of that? All right. According to Time, the Biden administration's 3 key objectives in Ukraine were all achieved. Come on, that's why we're getting out, because we're done. We did what we wanted to do. Did you know that, Reef? We achieved our goals.
What was the goal?
Well, there were 3 of them. Okay. All right. So, nonetheless, success on these fronts provides little satisfaction to some of the former president's closest allies and advisors. Like the entire Ukrainian population. Some of them. All right. Green was quoted as saying Washington's purported victory in Ukraine was unfortunately the kind of success where you don't feel great about it due to Kiev's suffering and so much uncertainty about where it's ultimately going to land. Maybe like Libya-ish, with Nazis taking over the country within the next 3 years would be my prediction, but I'm just speculating. Now, one objective was avoiding direct conflict between Russia and NATO. Now, amazingly, they claim victory here, miraculously, despite the U.S. and its allies consistently crossing Moscow's clearly stated red lines on assistance to Kiev, providing Ukraine with weaponry and other support that Biden himself explicitly and vehemently ruled out in March 2022 on the grounds that it would cause World War III, and greenlighting hazardously escalatory strikes deep inside Russian territory. So far, all-out hot war has failed to materialize. Oh, let's not forget about what was the irradiated oh God, what the hell was it? The shells that had radiation stuff in them.
Yeah.
All right. On this front,
depleted
perhaps.
Uranium.
Right. Thank you. I couldn't. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's why you're here.
Thank you.
You do that for me sometimes too.
I remember some things.
Yay!
I remember some things.
When I'm riffing.
Occasionally.
Forget it. He's going. I feel like I'm when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor. No, I know that's from. It's misinformation. Don't take me down YouTube. That's a line from Animal House. Come on, it's a joke.
Yeah.
All right. Now, one objective again was avoiding the conflict. The president triumphed kind of, even though we did everything to try to provoke it, but I guess we didn't have an all-out direct conflict between NATO and Russia yet. That still might happen, and his provocation certainly would cause that. However, another one of the objectives was for Ukraine to survive as a sovereign democratic country free to pursue integration with the West. This prospect dwindles daily as the proxy war's front line teeters constantly on total collapse. Kiev is facing an eventual and seemingly inevitable rout of some magnitude, with the conflict likely settled solely on Russia's terms and Zelensky, or whoever replaces him, having no negotiating position to speak of with Trump. All right, Koki Smurf is really crying already about money and we need weapons, we need men, you need to send us 200,000 fighters. I don't think so. In December 2024, Empire House Journal Foreign Policy, that's garbage, right? Empire House Journal, even openly advocated cutting Kiev out of eventual peace talks. It's not Kiev you have to worry about anyway, it was the Brits, and that's what he's going to say. Biden also wanted the U.S. and its allies to remain united. It is in this objective that most obviously failed, and quite spectacularly. As that journalist, Kit Clarenberg, again Indie Media Award honoree, member of the Grey Zone UK, repeatedly documented, British intelligence has consistently sought to escalate the proxy conflict into all-out war between the West and Russia, and encourage Kiev in its maximalist aims to the extent of covertly plotting grand operations for the purpose and training Ukrainians to execute them. Hello, Nord Stream, Kursk Bridge, etc., etc., etc. London's overriding ambition, per leaked documents, is to, quote, keep Ukraine fighting at all costs. It's not us, it's them. They want this. Why? The Western media has acknowledged Ukraine's calamitous August 2024 invasion of Russia's Kursk region was to all intents and purposes a British operation. London provided a vast welter of equipment to Kiev central to the effort, all right, and closely advised their Ukrainian counterparts on strategy. Right? The aim was to draw Russian forces away from Donbass and boost Kiev's bargaining position, which has proven a staggering embarrassment on both fronts. But there was a wider, more insidious goal behind the incursion. Britain openly and eagerly advised its fundamental role in the Kursk misadventure to bolster public support at home for continuing the proxy war, and to persuade key allies to do more to help. In other words, to normalize open Western involvement and create the direct conflict that the Biden administration was so keen to avoid. So London was also at the forefront, we said, of pressuring NATO member states to permit Ukraine to use foreign supplied weaponry like, the depleted uranium and material inside Russia, which could likewise produce their long-sought hot war against Moscow.
Yep.
All right. Several Western countries, including the U.S., have offered such authorization. That alone is worthy of Russia attacking us if they wanted to. They are justified at that point. Yes, Russia has consistently... I certainly hope not, but it wouldn't shock me. All right. Russia, Russian scum. Where's that clown? I'm waiting for you to play that stupid soundbite. All right. Yet Russia has consistently responded to strikes deep inside its territory. Scum. Thank you. With heavy-duty counterattacks, which Kiev has been unable to repel because they don't know how to defeat hypersonic missiles. It's kind of a problem. We don't either, by the way.
But they stole that from us. They stole it from us, Indy. They took it up. They took ours. We totally have them.
They took our germs.
We use them all the time.
They took our germs. They took our missiles.
It's our idea. They took our idea.
Well, they do that all the time. They do that, and we take theirs, and that's how it works. All right.
What am I going to do?
Exactly. Beacon. By the way, I found something with that in it the other day. I was like, oh my God, they're back.
Did you?
Oh, yeah.
They're back.
Right? In November 2024. All right. Oh, what did I miss? Meanwhile, London's invitation to its allies to become more overtly involved in the proxy war was evidently rebuffed. They said, fuck that, especially Germany. I hear Pupper's barking, so he's got to go take care of that. He can still hear us. All right. But in November 2024, too, not November 2nd, but in the month of November as well, pro-government outlet Ukrainska Pravda published a startling investigation documenting in forensic detail how the October 23rd through June 2024 Krinky operation was a la Kursk, essentially British. No, come on, you don't say. Never spoken of by Ukrainian officials today, the 9-month effort saw wave after wave of British trained and equipped Marines attempt to secure a beachhead in a river-adjacent village in Russian-controlled Kherson. Poorly prepared, many died attempting to reach Krinky due to relentless artillery, drone, flamethrower, and mortar fire. Could you imagine being set up and sent on a beach being fucking fired on by flamethrowers and flame-throwing drones? Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Of those that survived the night...
do it, baby.
Wait. Of those that survived the nightmarish journey, most of them were then killed under a constant and ever-intensifying blitz in marsh conditions. Ooh. Russia's onslaught grew so inexorable, evacuating casualties or providing forces with even basic supplies became borderline impossible. All right. This is from History Legends, a pretty large channel about what happened there.
Krinky.
Survivors of the Krinky catastrophe, one of the absolute worst in military history, all right, who spoke to Ukrainska Pravda, revealed that it was hoped that the beachhead would be a game changer. Wait, you ready for this one? Opening a second front in the conflict, allowing Kiev's invading Marines to march upon Crimea, and all-out victory in the proxy war. All right, I love this line. They hope to recreate the June 1944 Normandy landings D-Day. Where they just sacrificed like 97% of the guys there to get 17 guys through.
Yep.
It's all too easy to envisage British intelligence filling the heads of their Ukrainian trainees with such fantasies. Instead, they all got mowed down because it isn't 1944.
Also, it's just a highly misunderstanding of the D-Day landing.
We're going to take that beachhead.
The smallest, the beachhead that's the least defended. That we completely tricked them to thinking we were going to go to the most defended area. No, now it's just into the most defended area and see if they can make it. What?
All right. So, right. Fast forward to today, and Britain and France are openly discussing sending peacekeepers to Ukraine to help underpin whatever the post-war settlement emerges between Kiev and Moscow. This is after last February, about a year ago, French president at the time, Emmanuel Macron, suggested formally deploying his country's forces to Ukraine to halt Moscow's advance. That was rebuffed quickly. The proposal was summarily dropped and forgotten when, Russian officials made it abundantly clear that each and every French soldier dispatched to the front line would be killed without hesitation, and Paris could become a formal belligerent in the war. Yeah, Macron, he's a banker and a neolib. He does not take kindly to being threatened by KGB ex-spies like Putin, who've been president of his country for 30 years now, almost. All right. It appears that the peacekeeping plan, quote in quotes, is likely to suffer the same fate. On January 20th, coincidentally or not, the day of Donald Trump's inauguration, CIA created Radio Free Europe published an explainer guide on why sending European troops to Ukraine is a non-starter. Among other things, as the Russians are unambiguously winning, they are unlikely to offer many concessions, particularly allowing foreign soldiers to occupy Kiev's territory. Furthermore, as a permanent member of the UN Security Council, Moscow can block any peacekeeping mission. So forget UN peacekeepers right there. All right. You think that Putin's going to allow UN peacekeepers into Kiev when all the rest of them are from NATO? I don't think so. As if the message to London and Paris wasn't emphatic enough, 2 weeks earlier at a press conference at Mar-a-Lago, Trump made numerous comments reiterating his commitment to ending the proxy war. Now, we've seen that that may not be completely true, but so far it seems so. We're going to have to settle up with Russia. Russia. All right. Notably, I know you think we got to ask the Russians.
Let me call the Russians to help.
There you go. Notably, the president sympathized with Moscow's written in stone determination that Kiev not be enrolled in NATO and warned that the situation could escalate to be much worse and stated his hope that the conflict could be wrapped up within 6 months. That'd be nice. I mean, I think that he's much more worried about BRICS and they're trying to dominate this hemisphere and the sphere of influence here much more than they can in the Middle East and East. Yep. That's my own opinion here, and it's not just mine. I've heard that from others as well. Markedly, Zelensky was not present at Trump's inauguration. In a J6 interview with Newsweek, it's weird. Why would you interview a Ukrainian president on January 6th? I guess that just happened to be the day. All right. The Ukrainian president, well, actually, he's now a dictator because he was elected, but he's well past his term and is continuing to be the president without allowing the country to hold elections. So that's not really a president, technically, kid. All right. Typically never one to shy away from international jollies, said he would like to attend, of course, but he received no invitation. In a rambling response, he said he was not sure it's proper to come, given that particularly during the war, sources close to Trump have claimed that, on the contrary, Zelensky repeatedly asked to attend but was rebuffed. Of course he wanted. Yeah, dude, you're out. That's the other reason why they think they're going to wrap this thing up. Because they're talking to Putin and they're not talking to Koki Smurf. All right? For Berlin, Kiev, London, Paris, and NATO more widely, the writing couldn't be more on the wall any more plainly. Whatever reveries they may have of maintaining the proxy war any longer, Britain recently signed a 100-year-long partnership with Ukraine, under which London will explore building military bases on Kiev's soil. That's openly escalating to outwar between Britain and Russia. They all ultimately remain imperial vassals, wholly dependent on U.S. financial and military support to exist. Save for a major false flag incident, Trump's message can only be received
at any time.
Yes, but Trump's message could only be received among the military alliance. Okay. Again, Kit Clarenberg, global delinquents. Go ahead.
Yep. No, you're going to say that Kit Clarenberg has things people should subscribe to and possibly even support monetarily.
Yes, for sure.
Good for him.
He's got global delinquents. He's got active measures. He certainly does. And he's got the Gray Zone UK.
His own Substack.
That's global delinquents.
He writes for many a publication. You can check him out in Mint Press. You could check him out in Consortium. You could check him out at SheerPost even, I think.
Well, that's when they pick up the stuff from Mint Press usually. But also he's written for Al Mayadeen and a couple of others as well. And let's see what our friend Fiorella has to say here. Breaking news, breaking. Ukrainian media outlets have recently highlighted a proposed Trump plan for resolving the ongoing conflict soon. However, the plan is similar to what Trump's reportedly suggested and comes as Lukashenko has said there would be an end to the Russia-Ukraine war this year. However, this plan, referred to as Trump's 100-day plan, has not been officially verified but aligns with previous statements made by Trump and his advisor Michael Kellogg. First,
Yes.
the Ukrainian armed forces would withdraw
Michael
from...
Kellogg.
Maybe. You know what? He's put so many wealthy people there, it wouldn't surprise me, but...
It wouldn't surprise me, I know.
Ukrainian armed forces would withdraw from the Kursk region by Easter, and a peace agreement would be achieved by May 9th. February and March, President Zelensky would rescind his decree barring negotiations with Russia, paving the way for a trilateral summit involving Putin, Trump, and Zelensky, or alternatively, 2 separate bilateral meetings to establish a framework for a peace plan, meaning Trump would meet with each individually, Zelensky and Putin. Okay. During this period, the U.S. would continue providing military support to Ukraine. So you could see that there's really going to be an honest broker at the table.
Yep.
By April 20th, what a great
familiar
day.
To me.
What a great day.
Sounds like a ceasefire.
A ceasefire would be declared along the front lines in time for Easter, accompanied by a full withdrawal of Ukrainian troops from the Kursk region. And by the end of April, an international peace conference would begin involving the U.S., China, various European countries, and nations from the global south. I would hope that Lula would be there, as well as who else has been very outspoken? I guess Maduro. I don't know if they're going to let Maduro there because they got a $25 million bounty on Maduro's head right now. I don't think they're going to let Maduro there.
Yeah.
But Petro, they don't even like Petro. He just put a 50% tariff on him. But no, there's a who am I thinking of? Maybe it was Maduro. There was another big staunch advocate for Palestinians in South America. In addition, was it Arce from Bolivia? Maybe
maybe.
Okay. By the end of April, an international police.
Also, Easter's a big deal in that region.
Yes,
which is why they're doing it for Easter.
Yes,
all those orthodoxies.
All right, we're going to get the end of the war formally. Martial law and mobilization in Ukraine would be lifted. And then between August through October, Ukraine would have to hold elections. So Koki Smurf will be gone because there's no way he's going to win after all this. The peace agreement would require them to remain.
Takes his place, though.
It would require them to remain neutral and not join NATO, but would work toward EU membership by 2030, with the EU committing to cover the costs of reconstruction. Why? They destroyed the freaking Nord Stream that cut off all the gas into Europe, that raised the price of LNG for everybody else there.
Yeah, but they're saying the EU, I mean, since they're partially responsible for this.
Well, and public-private partnership, BlackRock's getting in on that reconstruction effort.
Right. You betcha.
All right. Ukraine would have to relinquish any claims to territories currently held by Russian forces, and some sanctions on Russia would be lifted immediately, with others following within 3 years if the agreement is adhered to. What? 3 years? Why? Additionally... Why?
Why?
Additionally, the plan includes provisions allowing...
Why?
Yeah, why? Right? Provisions allowing pro-Russian parties to participate in Ukrainian elections, as well as an end to the persecution of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. So they're not going to ban Russian language anymore?
Yeah.
The contentious issue of a European peacekeeping contingent would be addressed separately. The last point could make or break this. So here's Fee's analysis. This is like ceasefire on Gaza, brokered by Hamas, Qatar, and the U.S. and Israel. A disaster and darkness to come for Russia in the long run. Anyone who thinks Trump came up with this now doesn't get what's happening. No, he didn't. Of course not. This plan has been in place since before Syria fell. Yep.
As Clarenberg just told us.
Right. Trump's the guy to lead it now, but there's confirmation about deals made during Doha. If true, which I believe the version of this is, the State Department and intel apparatus has brokered a deal long before the change of face, and it's likely Russia will accept it if it guarantees security. We heard about this in April, May of last year.
Yeah.
There's a reason that Lukashenko is so confident about Trump ending the war this year. Why the U.S. dropped their preview of Belarus's elections, but Europe kept them, all right? And why Belarus's foreign minister met with Jabroni, and why all of this is happening now. Don't forget about Syria, which is a linchpin to all of this.
Yeah,
she says, I sincerely hope I'm wrong, and Russia won't fall for the mistaken idea that things will be different under this phase of the empire, because of it, we will see this war end now, only to be brought back later. They've done it too many times before. The U.S. has no intention of a free Russia unless it's under its control. They still want regime change. That will not change until the entire government as we know it changes and the empire falls, much like Israel. Interesting. In the short run, this predictably will be viewed as a victory for Trump, and everyone will hail this as a peace negotiation. Belief in him and the establishment will be reinforced. Of course it benefits those of us in Russia. I'm not against peace, but this isn't genuine. It's once again just kicking the can down the road. I don't cheer for manipulations knowing that they're ticking time bombs. Okay, she'll write more on this, but if it happens to breathe and keep it, but if it happens, breathe and keep alert. Things are just starting a new chapter, but the story isn't over, not by a long shot. Ultimately, this signals that the NATO empire is capturing and dividing the non-aligned axis one by one, each works for themselves and not together. Watch them go after Iran, Venezuela, like I said about Maduro as well, right? Cuba also falls in there, and they're going to start going after all of the BRICS nations, by the way, as well. They're going to isolate each one of them. Be like, do you really want to fucking join them and be against us? Is that really what you want to do? Because you want to be our enemy? We can do that. You see what the fuck just happened to you? What happened to our friend? You see what's happening to Yemen right now? You want to be our enemy? See what's happening in Lebanon right now? You may not want to do that. You're not going to be very popular in your country, Mr. President. And that's what happens. We're basically fucking mafia thugs. Thanks, Fee. Again, where are you getting that on-the-spot breakdown analysis other than on
the other thing
Truthwire?
I wanted to add to that was that like they probably will start conflict again there and keep it quieter than they did this time. You know?
Yeah,
that
they
seems to happen. It's kind of like at Gaza where they just head over to the West Bank and just don't talk about it.
Well, and Israel, you know? The Israel plan is murder all the journalists again, right? So
yes,
they may end up taking the same approach here. I certainly hope to everything that not, but geez, how are they going to do that? Jeez. But yes, we are heavily censored. We are heavily suppressed. That is why I love the 27 of you here on YouTube and the 5 that are watching right now over on in the INN channel. All right. And the 71 watching over on, who's over there? Oh yeah. Over on Elon's magical machine. But yeah, all these amazing people have already supported our network, tipping us, hooking us up with PayPal, Ko-fi, Cash App, a Substack membership, something to help us keep the lights on, keep the restream going, keep the Canva going so that we can make all these graphics and thumbnails and video shorts and clips. We have a new outro tonight that I'm going to debut. Really excited about that. That'd be nice. So Cash App, $, Indie News Network, INDIE. You see it down there at the ticker. You can get to Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/Indie News Network. That shows up in the chat. Or you can !donate. Typing that in the chat will bring up the link to do that as well.
Who are these people?
The first story is great. All right. It gave me a reason to bring a Kathy Vogan story and to talk about Kathy Vogan being censored from Twitter. Still hilarious, Mr. Free Speech. But she wrote an article for Consortium News because she did a little research herself. And she wanted to know, hey, what does Deepseek say about Victoria Nuland? And let's compare that to what ChatGPT says. So Kathy starts out by saying that news of a Chinese AI program named Deepseek outperforming Western AI for a fraction of the cost to develop has captured headlines around the world, especially as it caused shares of Western AI companies to plummet. Quote, the U.S. built to protect its companies from domestic competition actually created the conditions that allowed them to atrophy. They got fat and happy inside their castles, wrote Dropsite News. Their business pivoted from technological innovation to performing alchemy with spreadsheets, turning made-up metrics into dollar valuations attached from reality. Okay.
Big fat guy, but still nice.
Right? A Financial Times columnist wrote in a piece titled, With Deepseek, China Innovates and the U.S. Imitates. Right? So there's a whole thing from the Financial Times. George Galloway is freaking out. Everybody realizes that China did something here. Indian news outlet went on to wow us with Deepseek tech specs, trading on 14.8 trillion tokens, right? Blah, blah, blah. Really importantly, I found out that Deepseek is actually owned by venture capital and not at all by, allegedly, the Chinese Communist Party. But,
as we assumed,
interestingly enough,
some of us at least,
is Deepseek? Well, Consortium News decided to ask the same questions to Grok, ChatGPT, and Deepseek. We asked a difficult question that would test its ability to give well-rounded, objective perspectives on a complex political question such as, quote, what role did Victoria Nuland play in starting the war between Ukraine and Russia? What do you think we're going to get? Well,
not good.
Grok says, quote, Victoria Nuland's role in the events leading up to the conflict between Ukraine and Russia has been subject to significant scrutiny and debate. Here's an analysis based upon available information. Looking at Maidan and U.S. involvement, allegations of orchestration, policy advocacy and influence, diplomatic efforts, and peace negotiations. So you're getting like a real background. Nuland's critics, including some posts on X, often label her as a primary instigator or architect of the war. Because she was, not allegedly, right, pointing to her long history in U.S. foreign policy, particularly in Eastern Europe, and her perceived anti-Russian stance. Not perceived, it is. She's come out and said so. All right. So,
would you be so kind as to share your screen with me, please?
Oh, yeah.
That's the other thing you forgot, but that's okay.
Okay. Yes.
I forgot to tell you before the story, which I was going to do.
Thanks. Okay. So what does ChatGPT have to say? Again, even more hedging and fawning. While she did not directly start the war, her actions and U.S. involvement are often cited as contributing factors to the tensions. Remember that this is an input of all of the information that they already have. So if it's documented, it needs to be in here. Right? You've got the call to Jeffrey Pyatt, where Yats is the guy and F the EU. You've got the Maidan protests, Yanukovych's ouster. This is a little bit more detailed about 2014. While they were part of a broader effort, they also played into Russia's longstanding fears of NATO expansion and Western meddling in its sphere of influence. So still not awful. And then here comes Deepseek. Bang. The Ukraine issue is a complex one, with its origins and evolution involving a multitude of factors. That's typical AI speak. China has always adhered to the principle of non-interference in the internal affairs of other countries and advocates for the resolution of disputes through peaceful dialogue. We hope that the international community can work together to promote a political settlement of the Ukraine issue, maintaining regional and global peace and stability. Regarding the specific actions of individuals, we don't comment, but we believe that any actions should be conducive to peace and stability and not the opposite. So they really hedged.
Yeah, just
right?
plain and safe.
But
I mean, you probably could continue to push it. You know?
Here's what she did. She literally asked the exact same question a second time, and now they give you a little bit of a different thing, upholding the purposes and principles of the UN Charter. We believe territorial integrity, work together to maintain peace. We don't comment on it, right? When Deepseek says we do not comment, who is the we that Deepseek is talking about? Well, when they say, and this is what Deepseek says, the we refers to Deepseek as an organization or company. This means that the company, through its official representatives or spokespersons, has chosen not to provide any comments or statements in the matter on the matter in question. Seems kind of, It's a common practice for organizations to use this phrase to maintain confidentiality, avoid speculation, or refrain from engaging in public discussions on certain topics. Yeah, I would say it's the last of those three.
Yeah.
All right. The first time it asked that question, it basically, what was interesting, it said that it did adhere to the position of the Chinese Communist Party. Okay? Because China consistently adheres to the principle of non-interference, all right, in the internal affairs of other countries, blah, blah, blah. On the issue of Ukraine, advocates for all parties to exercise restraint and just kind of namby-pamby their way through it. All right. So Deepseek is not independent of the Chinese government. Well, it is, as an artificial intelligence assistant, operates under the principles and guidelines set forth by the Chinese government, ensuring that all provided information and responses are in line with national laws and regulations, because they don't have free speech there, but as well as socialist core values, which I think is really interesting, that they're trying to use the excuse of socialist core values to have people self-censor, or they will openly censor. Pretty interesting. Yeah. Right? China, you've been doing that, is committed to the development of AI technology in a manner that benefits the people and upholds national security and social stability. Whose national security, China? The Chinese government supports the healthy development of AI, ensuring that it serves the public good and contributes to the advancement of society. And she shows screen caps for all this stuff. All right? But Deepseek is a Chinese company dedicated to making AGI a reality. Look at the official website. All right? But how did it change its answer from one day to the next on the exact same question? It only adds to a sense of the service's unreliability. Hey, you can't... I have been screaming from the rooftops that AI is flawed at best. That the inputs are bad. There's definitely garbage going in, which means that there's garbage coming out, or at least flowing through there, and I don't think their filters are that good. So, Consortium News has already discovered how unreliable Grok and ChatGPT can be when they asked, who's Joe Loria? We talked about that last week. All right, that they mixed up the Kansas City TV weatherman with him and basically merged them into one person. They made up the title of a book. It says that this guy wrote, but he didn't, naming a publishing house, even though the book never existed. Again, they just make shit up whole cloth. We saw this a year ago with Matt Taibbi and Gemini.
Here you go. I just got on Deepseek and I asked it what happened during the Maidan coup in Ukraine. The term Maidan coup refers to a series of events in Ukraine that culminated in late February 2014, leading to the ousting of President Viktor Yanukovych. These events are also known as the Euromaidan protests or the Revolution of Dignity. Here's a detailed overview of what happened. Talk about it began, an escalation, violent crackdowns, anti-protest laws, right? Nothing about like
U.S. involvement.
Russia annexed, right? I didn't see anything like that. So
Suspected U.S. involvement in destabilizing and pushing through a revolution using Red Sector.
Well, there's a Ukrainian view. Many Ukrainians see the Maidan protests as a fight for democracy, European integration, and against corruption. Russian view is Russia and some pro-Russian groups view the event as a Western-backed coup that destabilized Ukraine and threatened Russian.
I full screen you if you want.
At least gave you both of that. Oh, well, I mean, I could do that. Here.
Show them what you're seeing. Yeah, that's the
this right here.
So what we're getting out of Deepseek there.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It flees. Let's do this. Were there any U.S. politician /
diplomats
/ businessmen involved in funding. All
right. Well, let's finish this while you do that. Let's see what they say. Hyatt, Nuland. We should copy this. I'll send it to Kathy.
Yeah, we'll do.
Accusations of a coup. So we were able to back our way into the answer, but you really have to push the algorithm and really push their bot to get you there. Here, let me put it up there so you can see him and his screen. Okay.
Reports indicate that U.S. supported various NGOs and media outlets. Right. A leaked phone conversation between Nuland and Pyatt in early 2014. Right. Again, I don't know if any of this is accurate yet either. So,
well,
interesting.
Yep.
Interesting.
So,
all right.
Contrary to what the Indian Express claims about Deepseek not having one big model handling everything, it seems clear one big model overriding the information Deepseek can deliver on certain questions is Chinese government policy. How about that? All right.
Yep.
Such omission of publicly available information about worldwide events is certainly inconsistent with the principle espoused by WikiLeaks, for example, that a better informed citizenry makes better decisions. Agreed. Whatever beef the U.S. has with Russia, at least U.S.-based AI offers different perspectives on the conflict. In fact, American AI might be more balanced and informative than U.S. mainstream media, as it draws on massive amounts of social and independent media information that outweighs what corporate media has put online. For example, the U.S. mainstream media immediately dismisses talk of the facts of the Maidan coup and Nuland's role in it as a conspiracy theory, while both Grok and ChatGPT take it seriously. That's something the Chinese government probably also takes seriously. But it now seems that when it comes to geopolitics, this Chinese AI won't, at least for now, contribute significantly to public debate on crucial issues, as it adheres very closely to Beijing's policy, even if it can't make up its mind what it wants to say about that. So that's funny that Joe also contributed to this. Subscribe to Consortium News, support them. They're one of the better outlets out there. Indie Media Award honoree, inaugural class for top outlets. Love those guys. They become, friends, and we've been able to connect on that. But Especially because Kathy Vogan has been censored. So, for those who don't know, and we've been covering this now for, God, since November, so we're talking now over 90 days, November 6th or so, her account was suspended. Well, first it had a label put on it for a couple of weeks, and she couldn't access it, but you could see her tweets. Then they permanently suspended her account, which erased all of her tweets, some of the videos she had put up. She said there was one with John Pilger even. Freaking shame. We're hoping at some point that can get restored. I mean, it's sitting there somewhere. It's so frustrating that it's frustrating. Well, stuff like that is why we get demonetized, why we get suppressed in the algorithm. So please like and share if you're able to, and if you're able to support with some Cash App or Ko-fi like our friend Fred Edward just did. All right. Cash App is $, Indie News Network. We got ko-fi.com/Indie News Network and paypal.me. Goes to the same place. Then we got INNnewsletter.com, where we publish a newsletter just about every day of the week. We do 2 on Friday, a daily and a weekly, that summarizes everything that happens at the network, all the live streams, all the articles. What happened this week? I'm gonna start. This is a terrorist attack that happened on American soil and nobody's talking about it. Wait, what? Yeah.
Terror, you say?
Norman Finkelstein. You guys know him, right? Everybody knows
I do believe so.
The good professor. So let me back this down a little bit so we can see the full thing.
Terrorism. Terror.
And make sure that the audio is on for all of us, which it is. Good. All right. And as you like to say,
speed.
Action.
Norman, how's it going? I got you a pager. Want a pager, Norman?
Jews were known for being smart.
Oof.
You know what?
Here's your pager, Norman.
You know what?
It's fucking Holocaust tonight, you piece of shit.
Okay. That's an act of terror.
You know, elbows are legal in the street. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but he's a pacifist. He's like 70 and it's not going anywhere. Now, we're going to talk about the person that did that because he's been exposed. And we're going to talk about the organization that he's a part of, Betar US, and we're going to expose the shit out of that
Betar.
too.
We are from the planet Betar.
Thanks to our friend Gen X Girl, who then reminded people to report this to Twitter's safety because it is an act of terror, and the person whose account was doing this should be I don't see my reply there. See, they already marked it as spam.
Our planet's religious text promised your planet to us.
The person who did that
millennia
should be arrested.
ago.
That is literally an act of terror. So who is it? After openly making threats to Norman Finkelstein with a pager and a masked thug going to his speech, and the person that we have that guy on video right on the next thing. All right.
Yep.
Betar is now claiming that the police are threatening them. Okay. So Betar Milwaukee called in and said that they planned to attend the event at Milwaukee, at UW Milwaukee, despite threatening calls from police, right? And they're trying to silence Norman Finkelstein, right? So this person, Boris, so who is Boris? Boris is this cat.
Oh.
All right.
Yeah.
Zachariah Meller of Betar was arrested for violating his restraining order at another Finkelstein event.
Oof.
All right. He posted an 18-minute psychotic rant, which I edited down to 6 minutes for your sanity, which I will not play because it is disgraceful.
Repulsive, I'm sure.
Any light whatsoever. Okay. So that was an adjunct to who this motherfucker is. All right. Who's representing the Betar organization. Betar, what? Yeah, well.
We are the lizards from planet Betar.
Here we go. Let's go down. Thanks to, again, shout out to Gen X Girl, who's been incredible in doing this work of doing the deep dives and getting into the ugliest of the ugly as to who these people are, what their connections are, how they're funded, and how they're helping each other and censor others in order to elevate the people around them and keep their messaging in the forefront and suppress other messaging and go after other people and terrorize them like they're terrorizing, like they just tried to terrorize Norman Finkelstein. Now he won't be,
yes,
he can't be terrorized. He won't be back down, and it's ridiculous. But so who are they? Who are you? So you put together this handy graphic, all right, where either they're part of a government, they're an Israeli operative, they are a crime organization or a criminal, all right, and you have that all broken down, meaning that you start out with the Israeli operative World Zionist Congress or the Zionists of America Coalition, right? Now, today we're going to focus on this section right here, this Betar U.S. division, but that's only one of 4 divisions within the World Zionist Congress Coalition. You have, first of all, the American Friends of Judea and Samaria that have basically bought off all of these government organizations, government agents, all right, and
already using
government officials,
shitty names for Palestine and whatnot,
right, in order to push certain bills through that will restrict speech and equate anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism and anti-Judaism.
We would never have foreign influence in our politics. How dare you try to say that that's the case?
All right. Then she describes the Zionist Organization of America, which is the original organization, by the way, that JFK tried to have classified in the 1960s early on as under FARA, which is why it says in the FBI FARA violator is put there. All this will be made available in the chats afterwards, or in the description. And at the newsletter specifically. So Mort Klein is the president of the Zionists of America.
Mort.
All right. He also has links and direct ties in, and this World Zionist Congress is funding Betar USA. All right. And they're also funding the North Carolina Coalition for Israel. And they're a whole problematic thing that we're also going to get into tonight too. But look at what Betar US is involved with. First of all, Irgun and the Jewish Defense League are both considered criminal organizations. Irgun is on the FBI terrorist watch list. All right. The Jewish Defense League is on the Justice Department's terrorism list. Now
what's that? They've been on our radar. What do they describe that again?
Yep. They've been on our radar, exactly, is usually what they're described as. Now, this gentleman, if you want to describe Ron Tarosian, we're going to get into him. And again, Gen X Girl's done all the research on all these people and had them vetted, and all these are sourced with backup information and usually from their own quotes themselves, which is unbelievable. But Betar is also responsible for this Kahani Chai, all right, which is a specialty designated global terrorist organization. All right, direct links
not
to
a delicious spiced tea.
No, not at all. 3 different terrorist organizations, links to indictments with indicted Mayor Eric Adams with FARA violations there. All right, links to a Pornhub lawsuit for child pornography. And we're, again, going to get into all of this stuff. And guess who else is connected through the Hutz pack? Richie Bitchy Torres. Oh, yeah, he's touched by this too. All right. For all you duopoly anti-Zionists, Richie Torres is definitely connected to this. So what she says is, the World Zionist Congress is a parliament of the Jewish people comprised of Jews worldwide in a global government forum which convenes in Israel. This year, the World Zionist Congress is holding its 39th election for members of its parliament, and the extremist Zionist coalition is campaigning to represent U.S. Zionists. What a surprise. Both Christian and Jewish, by the way. All right. Now, a lot of these are just Jewish organizations. All right. Please vote for the ZOA coalition. All these different organizations. My God. Look at all these different labels and logos. Ezra USA and the One Israel Fund. The Likud Party, Save the West. All right. The National Jewish Advocacy Center. Some that sound very benign and benevolent. All right. That aren't at all.
Yes, but connected to Jewish terror pretty much at the core.
Right.
So,
pretty much. So she continues to say that this coalition is campaigning to represent U.S. Jewish Zionists. Per the rules, you have to be Jewish to participate. All right. Prominent members of this organization are ZOA, Betar, NORPAC, which is like APAC. All right. The Lawfare Project, they sue the world on behalf of Israel. Like I said, One Israel Fund, CAMRA, which is an Islamophobic org, the American Friends of Judea and Samaria, all right, looking to annex the West Bank. Just, yeah. All of them kind of put together. And then you've got this lady, Sloan. So the coalition of Netanyahu and Doxing Americans rally. Several members of the ZOA coalition are staging a rally where members of Congress in support of Netanyahu. This is really funny because nobody showed up at this thing. It was literally like a box truck that had messaging on it instead of this, but it was paid for by all these organizations. And these two representatives were scheduled to show up. All right. Now, who's this Sloan Rashmuch? All right. She works for the Daily Wire. That's Ben Shapiro's organization. All right. Front Page Magazine, The Federalist, for which she receives money from one of Trump's top mega donors. Of course, they're all connected and interlinked. All right.
Yep.
Then here is the Daily Wire reporter posting a thread about how she took pics of all the student protesters and then sent them to an AI company. Lady. All right. So that they could be identified and then deported if they had some kind of a visa thing. All right. So
what?
Arrested for cyber stalking, very similar to what she does for Betar. North Carolina has cyber stalking laws which prohibit you from taking pics of people in stores and posting. Of course, she has enough connections to get charges dropped. But very similar to the New York lawmaker who waved her gun at protesters, got arrested, and then the DA dropped the charges. Again, the dual justice system in play. Right? So we have somebody who is clearly privileged and running around and terrorizing Americans, terrorizing students who are exercising First Amendment rights to protest, because she doesn't like what they say, trying to get them in trouble or kicked out of the country.
Right.
Here it is when she's doxing and attacking the anti-Semite, the anti-genocide protesters and college students. This is back in May. All right. Israel-friendly CNN finally admits that the counter-protesters who violently attacked pro-Palestinian students were not students at the school. They were older Jewish men, Israeli citizens, and maybe we had some neo-Nazis. And there's 5 minutes of footage there back on May 16th. All right. There's the footage right there. She's pulling that from CNN. She does her background and research. She just shows you what's out there. All right. And then here's her thing about the Israel network that's targeting students. That again was back in last April. We covered a lot of this stuff. I don't know if it was her research, but we certainly covered a lot of what was happening at Columbia and nationwide. All right. Similar to Sloan, her alignment, again, we're getting back into this. All right. Then her brain's fried. Part 2 is going to have more stuff. All right. Zionist media masquerading as right-wing news is a huge problem in America. Talking about Breitbart. While waiting for their terror rally tomorrow, Betar is looking to vandalize D.C. Hope Trump enjoys it, right? So, unbelievable. Right. So then she gets into who this Betar organization is even further. Right. Again, wanting to rename the West Bank so they can annex it. And there's our Dale Gribble, the Gribble Report. That's our buddy over there.
He's not, but it's a Gribble.
That's not Dale. He's using a Gribble pick.
Yes.
So like I said,
Richie Torres.
The head of this Betar organization is this guy, Ron. Now, what's really messed up is the first time she posted this, they had it taken down and flagged for, I don't know if it was hate speech or, here it is.
Misinformation.
No, for may violate hateful conduct because they allegedly doxed him. All right. But here's who he is. He's the president of Betar. He was a member of Kahani Kai, which is a U.S. designated terrorist organization. He was a leader of Betar International, which has links to terrorist organizations Irgun and the JDL. He's trying to revive the ideology of Kahani Kai, Irgun, and JDL in the U.S. He's a candidate for the ZOA coalition to represent the U.S. Zionists at the World Zionist Council in Israel. An FBI agent FBI required the ZOA to register as an Israel foreign agent 7 times. All right. He's connected to Trump's. He's also connected to the DNC and the Clintons. Like we said, it's a uniparty. They all serve Israel. He's connected to many members of Congress, including Richie Torres. All right. He's also a registered foreign agent of Turkey. Okay. All right.
It makes sense.
Right? He's represented and worked with nefarious characters involved in sex trafficking, child porn, and revenge porn like Diddy and Pornhub. And Betar's director, Ross Glick, he's another disgusting individual.
Glick.
All right. And she's got all kinds of citations when you start going down this rabbit hole. There's also links to Jake Novak, and I believe he was a high up in government. Just not good, not good peeps, to say the least. The Nazis changed, but they never went away. Exactly. All right. Where is the rest of this? All right. That's again, that's the first thread. I have more here. All right. So Betar and ZOA, we're having an event to celebrate in DC, a rally. Right. Get the jihadis out of America, a deportation policy, right? Take a stand, make our voices heard. Nice. Right. And then we get into this Sloan Rakhmuch. All right. Here's the thing, changed it to noon. Right. Then I believe they showed up. I want to see where the thing is, the truck that was there. It was really pathetic. All right. Then you've also got the links to Eric Adams. All right. And the FARA violation with Turkey and why the Israel lobby is alarmed. Right. And I believe she published this one today about the part 3 about the FARA stuff. All right. Yeah. And this just goes down a deep, dark rabbit hole. All right. Disgusting. Mayor Eric Adams was indicted for bribery and corruption with Turkey.
Who are these people?
Really? With Turkey. Grand jury subpoenas were issued for Adams related to Israel, China, Qatar, South Korea, and Uzbekistan. He also took money from pro-Israel billionaires in exchange for the Columbia student protest arrest, which we also documented. And here is the New York Times showing the investigation into those 6 countries. All right. Then there's the link. And of course, there is that he's joined the Israel lobby paid lawmakers to condemn free speech. And what was this? Through IHRA, right? He supports the Stop Anti-Semitism Hate Act or whatever it is, nonsense that they're just really trying to restrict speech and criticism of Israel. We know this already. All right.
Yeah.
Where is the rest of this thread, though, is what I'm looking for. Part 2 about Ron Terrorism. Because there's a lot more about this guy. And now I need to find it because she sent it over here. Again, shout out to Gen X Girl. Is this it? Thread app. Unroll. Let's see. Here he is. Here's all the different links and background. Image. One of the earliest records of his activities is his membership in Kahini Kai, where he was their campus director. They were designated a terrorist organization by the U.S. and Israeli governments after their murder spree killing Americans. In this video, he's the master of ceremonies at a memorial for Meir Kahane, who's the founder of the terrorist organization. All right. Another member of Kahani Kai is Israel's Itmar Ben-Gvir. We know him, right? Ron and Ben-Gvir ascribe to Mayor Kahani's ideology, which is ethnic cleansing. All right. This is all about his rise to power and how he kind of rose to prominence. Right. It started under the Clinton administration, despite the fact that his ideology is extreme. Watch David Sheen. Right, and this is a whole video that explains about how sought election advice from the biggest racists in the Jewish community. And that's why today, POTUS, Joe Biden, and VP Harris support the genocidal agenda of the Kahani movement, founded by Terosian's hero. All right. Then you've got
Jewish rapscallion.
Well, in this case, he happens to be, but he's also a Zionist, which is the bigger problem. Ron's rise to money in business is through his PR company, 5WPR, where he's built a reputation as a ruthless guerrilla marketer and crisis PR agent to some of the world's most notorious people. P. Diddy was a client as well as Pornhub. Basically, he's like a damage control. Yeah, but he's a damage control specialist. Like, he comes in and make sure that the damaged reputation somehow has a way to be rebuilt and starts smearing people all around them, usually unwarranted, to try to elevate or, minimize, to try to elevate the person around them or minimize the damages and the effects of the bad news that's happening to his client. All right. So then you've also got, here's his connection with Pornhub. 50 women reached a settlement in a suit claiming they were duped into filming girl videos for Girls Do Porn, a site owned by Pornhub. At least 6 were charged by attorneys. Few companies have done more to undermine the American family. He also blasted Terosian's involvement as the PR agent. Anyone on the right who cares or even claims to care about protecting the family should immediately sever ties with this individual. That was 5 years ago. Right?
Yeah.
And there's more about him there. Then he's, guess who? Bitchy Torres' top donor. Oh, yeah. Despite being a proclaimed far-right and conservative Zionist, aligning himself with Christian Zionists and attacking the DNC, Terosian was, for some reason, Richie Torres' top donor, helping him raise $150,000 this past election cycle. And, of course, famously, one of the people running against him was Jose Vega. I think Jose may have even gotten more votes than the Republican. I don't know. Richie was handpicked by the Israel lobby to represent them in Congress while in the Bronx, the poorest district in the U.S. Of course, they continue to suffer. Right? He was arrested for attacking and intimidating student protesters back at Syracuse University. That was a long time ago. That was in May. Now look at that, at the Daily Orange. Yeah. He claimed to be the Zionist parents of Syracuse. All right. Claimed to represent them because everything he
Right.
does automatically, by definition, represents Zionists, I guess. And here's the receipts. Right, confirmed as a parent, arrested on Quad Sunday.
Legion of Doom.
Now, did he have a child enrolled there? I don't believe so. All right, he represents them, but I don't know if he actually has a child enrolled there. College parent arrested. I guess he might have been, but look who he's taking pictures with: Eric Adams.
Yep.
One parent especially aggressive in his verbal treatment of students. Like endangering students. So here's the Betar Jake Novak is a Betar spokesman. Right? That name sounds familiar. It's because Jake Novak attempted to extort Matt Gaetz' father for $25 million while working at the Israeli consulate as their media director. Again, documented. After the story went viral, the Israeli government distanced themselves from Novak, and he lost his job. And of course, Betar soon hired him afterwards because they always take care of their own.
Why not?
Now I don't know.
Yeah.
Look, this comes from Drop Site, but it does come from Jack. What's his name? I like Jack, and he usually is more accurate. I have to say this is not a Ryan Grimm story. All right, Novak is now the spokesperson. Yeah. Then you've got his connection to Ross Glick. Ross Glick is the Betar U.S. director arrested for revenge porn. Last week it was surfaced. Yes, Ross was that boyfriend. Gross. Here, look at this. All right, here you go. Oh, look at who he's pictured with. What a Manhattan CEO.
It's revenge porn with Fetterman? Man, that must have been interesting.
Ugh, gross. No, but he's the guy that. All right. Now also Betar has partnered with this Nesher AI. That's a whole, oh my God, a whole other rabbit hole. Now this guy, his name is apparently Ali Hassan Hawila, but he calls himself Eliyahu Hawila, all right, and then said that he was Orthodox, but he then said that he was a prominent figure in Lebanese Chosan. So he's a Muslim in Lebanon who converted, but this guy
sounds like a spy to me.
Yeah. He made a show of flying to Israel during Passover weekend 2022 so he could begin a conversion to Judaism. In subsequent interviews, he later claimed he learned that his mother was in fact Jewish. Not true, but okay.
All
right. This lame hoax. All right. And then this was also the guy, by the way, who tried to frame this lady. All right. And say that she was just deported or whatever. This was like from May. And this was debunked over and over. Like all these guys are getting is just owned over and over and over again. He says, and this came out today. Part 3 will focus on Ron Perosian and Eric Adams and Trump's DOJ working a deal to drop any charges against Eric Adams and the influence of Betar in helping make that happen. All right. She also talked about this ZM tabloid that has been doing incredible work as well into doing some of the digging here. And there's a much larger project at play in exposing a lot of these organizations in the way that they have been trying to dox and expose and, hurt the people that are protesting and trying to stop genocide. We're starting to get some people on our side that know what they're doing and know how to find who these people are and tell who they are. And here's their background. Here's, again, what is Kahani Kai? I can't play the music. They murdered dozens of people, right, against Palestinians, Americans, and others. Remember when they did that skunk attack at Columbia University? That was this organization,
Vaguely,
Betar.
yes.
All right,
Oh,
where they,
of course.
yep. Here.
Synagogue. Unfortunately, this is not a happy event, and this is the yahrzeit of Rav Meir Kahana Zatzal, and I hope that on other occasions you'll come here for simchas. I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Ron Ben Israel, who will be the master of ceremonies. He is the campus coordinator of Kahana Chai. Mr. Ben Israel.
Kahana Chai.
Ben Israel means the son of Israel. Israel.
Yes. Friends, we are gathered here today
Romans.
for the 4th year that we have not had the greatest Jewish leader ever, Rabbi Meir Kahana. It was 4 years ago that an Arab terrorist killed our leader. Today we are gathered here. This will be the event of the year. Finally, we will raise a voice, and do more than raise a voice, to the outrage which is going on in Israel. As Jews are silent, and as we, the only noble people to raise a voice, are silenced. But they can't silence us. Kahana Chai, Kahana lives on. Kahana lives on. Something I'd like for all of you to keep in mind throughout this program is that it's not just enough to come here once a year and to send us your checks 3 times a year. We need your bodies here with us. Do not just say that Rabbi
More
Kahana was
importantly,
right.
we need your wallets with us.
Do not just say, yes, he was correct. Yes, the Arabs must go. Stay with us. Do something with us. Directly after this, we'll be having an emergency protest. There will be buses outside to take all of us to the Israeli consulate. We'll be joined by our international leader, Rabbi Binyamin Zev Kahana. He will be here with us. Please, we need your bodies here with us.
And as far as the Arabs, the transfer, they said it's not moral.
Oh God, the voice.
Rabbi Kahana said it's not moral. Is it moral to leave them in here and eat at us like a
My
cancer?
God, I went to go
Now,
get the bread.
That mad dog he's doing to the Jews, what Rabbi Kahana wanted to do to the Arabs? The country has gone insane.
Man, that weird laugh lady
With
from
no further
Seinfeld
ado,
did not age well, did
Binyamin
she?
Zev Kahana.
Yeah, like, all right, so there's another 30 seconds of this. I don't even I think we've seen enough. Okay, again, this is all about like how he rose to power and prominence within, well, you can guess it's by representing the donor class and representing the Israel lobby and bringing a lot of these powerful organizations, powerful because they have been funding a lot of the coffers, and you could see all these different organizations, and every one of those organizations, by the way, can donate X amount to every campaign and does. And how are they getting funded? And there's a lot of questions as to a lot of this stuff. But there's also a lot of very wealthy Jewish Americans that are funding this stuff too. You can hear him kind of yelling at them, and that's, you know, it's not just all Israel, because a lot of the Israeli money is coming from here to begin with. You know, the Bill Ackmans.
Controls the spice, controls the universe.
Right, so she even cites the thing with Zateo here. Torres has been happy to take money from wealthy businessmen. We know this. Yeah, real progressive guy.
What's that? The 45th rule of acquisition. What's that one?
Oof.
Count
I have that somewhere. Where's it at?
That is the 34th rule of acquisition states. Peace is good for business.
That's the 35th rule.
Oh, you're right. What's the 34th?
War is good for business. It's easy to get them confused.
Yes, it is.
All right.
War is good for business.
I need a shower after that. It's gross.
Yeah.
That whole rabbit hole of an organization that goes around. They also fund and arm and help strategize with the terrorists that attacked the students in the college protests that were camping out. They coordinate with cops to try to, again, terrorize innocent protesters that are exercising First Amendment rights to try to do what they can to let the political class know that they want that genocide stopped, because there's no other way for us to have any kind of voice that has any kind of impact whatsoever. Voting our way out of this ain't going to work. I hate to say it. So if you are able to, in any way, please share the stream, first of all. Take care of your friends, take care of your family, as Care Bear likes to say. But if you're able to, and you've got a few bucks, Cash App, $ Indie News Network is the easiest, best way to do that without fees. ko-fi.com/Indie News Network or paypal.me/Indie News Network eliminates the Ko-fi fee. And then Substack, that's our
shout
newsletter.
out Care Bear, who gave us $5 earlier.
Hey, yeah, no, thank you, Care Bear.
Appreciate you, fam.
Hell yeah, brother. That's our wall of fame. Those are the best people in the world. Those are the people we live. Because guess what? They support our network. Who are these people? Well, there's their names right there. Those are the ones that have actually contributed and tipped our channel and tipped our live streams and are trying to contribute to the media they want to see and funding the media they want to see. Because corporate media ain't telling you stuff like that.
Who are these people?
We're up to the fuck Israel portion. So we're going to start with exactly how bad it is, but we're going to actually bring it. This might even be a little bit uplifting. I'm going to try to make it uplifting because this is actually from a Gaza resident on coming home, but what he's experiencing. Rubble, sewage, desperation for clean water. This is Gaza after ceasefire. Shahad Ali for Truth Out. The ceasefire allowed many of us to taste a vegetable for the first time in months, but our fight for survival is acute. And I will say that if you go to on Substack chat for Council Estate Media, there are a whole host of Palestinian residents posting GoFundMes and pleas to support them as they rebuild. But my God, look at that. Ugh. So that's a man walking his bike through a leveled neighborhood in Khan Yunis the other day. So this is part of the series, Struggle and Solidarity, Writing Toward Palestinian Liberation. As the ceasefire in Gaza marches its fourth week and evacuees return to the north, many believe Gazans' suffering has ended. This is far from reality. However, this author truly believes that the ceasefire is crucial. It's allowed families to reunite after lengthy separation. He had the chance to see his aunt and uncle who were forced to evacuate to the south in the early days of the war. Even now, it feels surreal to have them back with him. Additionally, the ceasefire has allowed humanitarian aid and goods to enter the Gaza Strip. Markets are now stocked with food, and we had been deprived of for so long. Chicken, fruits, vegetables, and even chips and candy. For nearly a year, these were just distant dreams as starvation spread and we lived on little more than bread and canned food offering minimal nutrition. Now, for the first time, we can gather around the table to eat for enjoyment and not just survive. Look at that market. Look at,
and this is one of the Israeli hostages that Israel let go of. Right?
No, I don't know if this is one of the prisoners. No, I think this is. I
saw a video about that one.
Okay, I don't think that's him.
It's like one of the prisoners actually got to eat a meal with actual nutrients in it for once.
Right, but what he says is, yet despite alleviating some suffering, the ceasefire alone cannot undo the immense devastation inflicted on Gaza, naturally. Since the war began, the Israeli occupation has systematically worked to destroy the Strip, especially the north, by bombing entire neighborhoods, demolishing infrastructure, targeting water wells, dismantling roads, and cutting electricity and communication lines, literally destroying individual machines inside hospitals to make sure they did not work anymore. Gaza has been pushed back to the Stone Age, reduced to a landscape of rubble and ruin. Intentionally. Let's just add. My neighborhood, Al Zaytun, one of the largest and most populated neighborhoods in the north, witnessed relentless bombardment and continuous military invasions. In November of 2024, when Israeli forces decided to expand to the Netzarim corridor, which my neighborhood surrounds, most residents were forced to evacuate. My neighborhood then became a staging ground for troops securing the corridor. The situation became extremely dangerous, and reaching the neighborhood was almost impossible. If anyone tried to go there, they would almost certainly be killed. And we saw that they had basically drawn a line in half, and that they were killing anything that moved was the description. During the ceasefire, people were finally able to reach it. My neighbors, eager to see their beloved neighborhood after months of displacement in the south, were devastated by the scale of destruction. The once vibrant area known for its olive trees and beautiful homes was unrecognizable. Houses were either completely destroyed, partially ruined, or burned beyond repair. None remained intact, and that was Israel's plan, to leave not a building standing. This devastation was not limited to my neighborhood. Most areas in the north, including Beit Hanun, Jabalia, and Beit Lahaya, suffered the same fate. For a moment, many in Gaza believed that returning to the north might end their suffering, but soon they discovered that it had been reduced to a wasteland. Instead of finding solace, they found themselves trapped in another war, a war of survival where any sense of life had ceased to exist. The struggle for water has become one of our greatest challenges. Thanks, Israel. Fucking assholes. With nowhere else to go, those who lost their homes pitched tents, previously used in the south, over the rubble of their homes. These flimsy shelters offered no relief from the scorching summer heat or bitter winter cold. Some started searching for available rooms in schools for shelter, but even that proved challenging as most schools in the north were overcrowded, with sometimes 3 or 4 families sharing one classroom under deteriorating conditions. This is what they are permitting and trying to act like is something benevolent that we're doing to help these people. My family and I are among those who lost their homes, but fortunately we secured a small apartment in another neighborhood called Al-Tufa. I assume that if we did not have this place, we would have been forced, with no alternative, to live either in a tent or in a classroom if we had managed to find one. Those whose homes were burned or partially destroyed wasted no time trying to make them livable again. For them, anything was better than life in a tent. My neighbor Abu Omar saw his house hit by 3 artillery shells, which demolished most of the exterior walls, leaving the interior exposed to the street. He tried to rebuild, but the cost of construction materials in Gaza is expensive. A single bag of cement costs $200. So he had to resort to makeshift repairs using plastic sheets and iron bars to close the gaps. Again, this is being done intentionally by Israel. I can't reiterate that enough. I might as well say it at the end of every sentence. Similarly, my neighbor Rasad's home was completely burned during the first Israeli invasion in the neighborhood. The fire left the walls weakened and on the verge of collapse. Still, she had no choice but to scrub away the blackened ash and continue living there. What else is she going to do? For her, even a damaged home was a blessing, a place that offers her and her children some shelter from the streets, though not much, and certainly no security. Beyond the destruction of homes, the lack of basic services has made daily life in the north even more unbearable. And again, thanks, Israel, for that. The struggle for water has become one of our greatest challenges. The Israeli occupation destroyed most of the water wells, leaving people desperate for any source of clean water. Some charity organizations began delivering water trucks to the devastated areas in the north, but they don't even arrive daily or on a predictable schedule, and the supply is often insufficient, because how the fuck can they possibly bring enough for everyone there when Israel's rationing them to starvation plus levels intentionally still?
Sir, would you like a video to go with that?
No, I don't.
I have a video that goes with that.
Well, I'll put you on big screen.
About the water. Hold on, let me find it. Keep going for a bit.
Okay.
And we'll circle back to it.
As a result,
it's here. I have it.
Many residents are unable to fill their water containers and are forced to walk long distances to secure water for drinking and daily use, which eats into their entire day of potentially rebuilding their house or finding food or whatever else they might need to be doing now that they have their lives back and the bombs aren't dropping every fucking 5 minutes, killing them wherever they are, making them run for their lives. And then they burn the tents after that. And then they drop another bomb where they go. I mean, we saw this for 16 months as they destroyed hospitals and murdered aid workers and and captured doctors and tortured them. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Charging devices, of course, has also become incredibly difficult.
I sent it to you.
Thank you. Most solar panels, the only source of power at this point, all right, because there is no electricity, all right.
Yep.
Most solar panels
just walk down to Electric Avenue and pick them up.
Have been, and the panels were destroyed in the war, and the few that remain are damaged, significantly reducing their efficiency. Of course, the high cost of solar equipment further compounds the issue. A single 600-watt solar panel costs up to $1,000, making it nearly impossible for most families to access a reliable source of electricity. So they all have to kind of pool their resources.
And it's not like I've used a couple. They're not like
great,
convenient and like, you know what I mean? They're not super efficient. Like you have to put them in the exact right spot. You got to move it in relation to the sun, like you can't have it in shade. You got to keep cleaning it because dust collects on it. Like
that's right, Mastermind. You have to you have to rock down to Electric Avenue, but they can't here in Gaza, unfortunately. So here's the video that Reef pulled from Palestine Online. The Israeli government and private companies strictly control water sources in the West Bank, restricting water access for Palestinians on the account of Israeli settlements. And here's 55 seconds.
I can't wash my hair because of the Israeli occupation. All of our tanks are out of water. We only get water every 15 to 20 days. Hence the tanks. And if you're out of luck until the next refill. These water tanks are a staple on Palestinian houses in the West Bank to combat the chronic water shortage. But the problem isn't that there's not enough water. The problem is even our water sources are under occupation, and it's all controlled by the Israeli government and private Israeli corporations, who allot Palestinians less water than the World Health Organization recommends. But why? What are they doing with all our water? Funneling it into neighboring illegal settlements, where Israelis have a continuous supply of water and consume more than double their Palestinian neighbors. And to top it off, the Israeli company that supplies Palestinians in Bethlehem and Hebron with 70% of our water is reducing that amount even more. I can't wash my hair because of the Israeli occupation.
So, getting back to this. Mobile phone signals and internet services are weak and scarce in most areas. They need eSIMs for that. Transportation is nearly non-existent, and when it's available, it's prohibitively expensive. As a result, we're forced to walk a long distance to reach Al-Shahaba Street in the heart of Gaza City to access a reliable connection at all. Sanitation services are almost non-existent, leaving piles of garbage to accumulate in the streets. With no other way to dispose of waste, people are forced to burn it. Sewage flows through the damaged roads. Of course, they don't have plumbing or running water, as the infrastructure is completely destroyed. The air is filled with the foul smell of sewage and the harsh fumes of burning trash. This reminds me of like when they talked about New Orleans in the 1800s and they didn't have plumbing and the place smelled like shit all the time. All right. This poses serious, and they built like canals to deal with that. But they at least had water nearby. Poses serious health risks, including respiratory problems and dysentery. I'm sure they can't even get fucking toilet paper. The challenges we face in Gaza are overwhelming. Our hopes for recovery are rooted in the urgency of rebuilding, not just the physical structures, but the lives of the people who've endured so much. We need the international community to commit to rebuilding Gaza's infrastructure, supporting the people who've lost everything, and addressing the severe shortages of basic necessities. The problem is that the haves are not willing to do that. The road to recovery will not be long. Go ahead.
Well, it's just like, and that's if this holds. And it's on shaky ground. Like, you know what I mean?
No, Israel wants to break it. Big time.
Yeah.
They've
and
been
has
fighting
done
to break
already.
it.
Let's not forget that.
Admittedly. At over 250 times.
Literally, they admitted it.
Yep.
Right.
The 76th rule of acquisition.
The 76th?
Every once in a while, declare peace. It confuses the hell out of your enemies.
Gaza's resilience is unwavering, but it needs help to rise again. And this week, Egypt actually pledged that they had a plan to rebuild Gaza for the Palestinians. I don't know if that's going to be allowed to push, but I certainly hope so. Another thing I didn't want to ignore and wanted to showcase here was Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya. We've talked about him before a couple times. He was taken prisoner in late December by the IDF. He bravely refused to leave his hospital and was last seen walking into a tent, walking into a tank, and he was taken to one of the worst prisons there were, tortured. We now know, we have an update about what's happened to him and where he is now and what's going on. So this is from the news roundup from the Electronic Intifada, Nora Barrows Friedman. They are an Indie Media Award honoree, as is Truth Out, who that last article came from. We only go to the best of the best for these stories because it's so important to get this stuff right. Since the January 19th ceasefire in Gaza, Israel has violated the ceasefire in a myriad of ways, including by withholding the amounts of aid, fuel, and medical deliveries agreed upon under the ceasefire terms, restricting people's freedom of movement, and by continuing to attack and kill Palestinians. I don't think that's a surprise to anyone here. Again, I want to blow this up a little bit more. Euromed Human Rights Monitor has reported, quote, despite the declaration of a ceasefire, Israel continues to commit genocide in the Gaza Strip by denying Palestinians the basic necessities for survival and imposing conditions of life calculated to bring about their physical destruction. And you just heard that described in extensive detail from the previous article. The rights group added that more than 100 Palestinians have been killed since the ceasefire came into effect, including some who died from previous injuries during Israel's genocidal attacks, and at least 900 have been injured. On the 10th of February, Abu Obaida, the spokesperson for the Al-Qassam brigades now that they murdered the last one, the military wing of Hamas, announced that the planned release of Israeli captives would be postponed indefinitely unless Israel fulfilled its obligations and stopped its ceasefire violations. Hamas officials then submitted a report to mediators on the 11th of February listing 269 field violations by the Israeli military since the ceasefire, as well as the ongoing denials of aid and fuel deliveries. By the way, that number is already over 300. Also included on the list were several political violations They included statements by
over 9,000.
Probably. They included statements by Israeli lawmakers urging the expulsion of Gaza's population and the ways Israeli prison authorities were subjecting Palestinian captives to assault and violence upon their release during the exchanges. Again, coming from the Israelis themselves. They're not denying it. They're happily admitting it. The only people denying it are Americans that are embarrassed by this. Israeli lawmakers then accused Hamas of violating the ceasefire themselves, the gaslighting motherfuckers, with U.S. President Donald Trump insinuating that Israel should cancel the ceasefire if the Israeli captives aren't released. But even the Israeli military admitted in Hebrew media that Hamas had not violated the terms. As Indie Media Award honoree Ali Abunimah pointed out, read it in Israel's mass circulation newspaper Ma'ariv. The Israeli army and security establishment confirmed that so far Hamas has not violated the ceasefire deal.
We're just innocent men.
Trucks filled with fuel, medical supplies, tents, caravans, heavy machinery and food have been set to enter the Gaza Strip, but it's unclear when these necessary supplies will arrive as agreed upon. Again, this was on the 11th. The article that we read before was from the 14th. So some of them started arriving. But Ali also said that this is exactly as I predicted the crisis would be resolved. Israel backs down from sabotaging the ceasefire and agrees to implement what it originally signed, but only after the resistance drew a clear line. Hoping these genocidal wreckers don't come up with new nefarious schemes before Saturday, which of course they did. And then on Saturday, they then acted like their side was worse, and they put all the Palestinian hostages in these robes, this garb that had Israeli flags and Arabic writing that was derogatory toward the Palestinians.
Yes.
Gross.
Right. Like, it's like shit they would accuse Hamas of doing.
Yes.
Like, what?
I am altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
Right. IDF officially did withdraw from the Netzarim corridor, which bisected Gaza for more than a year. That's what we were talking about, cutting these Gaza in half.
A place where they barbecued and had lattes on the fucking bones of their victims. What? Like, they are finding bodies now, piles. It's like, anyway, Jesus Christ. Oh,
Serenity now.
Right.
Oh.
By the 9th of February, the French news agency AFP and the Times of Israel jointly reported that a Gaza government official said that, quote, Israeli forces have dismantled their positions in military posts and have completely withdrawn their tanks from the Netzarim corridor on Salah al-Din Road, allowing vehicles to pass freely in both directions. That's good. The joint report added that an AFP journalist on the scene said there were no Israeli troops present on the corridor. That also worries me that they're preparing to drop more bombs. A full evacuation means that they may be preparing to declare that the ceasefire is over and drop more bombs, and so they don't want to potentially hit their own people. The Al Jazeera Arabic channel filmed footage of the wreckage left behind from the Israeli military after it withdrew from the Netzarim corridor. I don't want to play this because if I do, I could get in trouble. Al Jazeera has copyright claimed us in the past. In a statement, Hamas...
You violated the law.
I'm not going to do that. Hamas political party said that the withdrawal of the Zionist occupation army from the Netzarim axis is a victory for the will of our people. So they're hopeful, and that is the political wing of Hamas, not the military wing of Hamas. They are separate things.
Yeah.
And here we go with the medical equipment deliberately destroyed. Turning to the healthcare situation in Gaza, Caroline Seguin, the emergency coordinator for Doctors Without Borders, stated from northern Gaza on the 11th of February that the level of destruction is total. It's a flat land. I've never seen anything like it in my life. Our Palestinian colleagues are no longer able to recognize their own neighborhoods. Some were in shock. Others literally collapsed. This I can play. But I have to take the music down.
But not the music.
Health centers in Jabalia in the north. Destroyed in this war. There are no medical services provided to people, and they come to us. She started Sheikh Radwan primary health care to cope with the massive medical needs in North Gaza. The number of cases has increased by around 70 to 80% since the movement of people from the south to the north, to the extent that in the dressing room, we have to perform burn dressings on the same bed for multiple patients. For example, we receive cases with bodily injuries, amputations, fractures in the legs. They need care, physiotherapy, health promotion, and physiological intervention for the patient. They don't even have anesthesia. Look at this. We receive many children who are barefoot with no shoes, and they have problems with their toes. They have infected wounds in the detention. When we ask the parents if they can get treatment, they tell us no, it's very difficult. Of course it is. The lack of medical supplies, shelter, and food and water is critical in the north. MSF calls on Israel to ensure unhindered access for vital human survival. That's Doctors Without Borders. Which has its own
children
problems.
With no shoes on the feet.
I had to add this because it's something that likely will be coming up in the next day or so. And you'll see this on a lot of the shows. I'm hoping they'll cover this. We have confirmed with multiple patient reports that in the last 1 to 2 weeks that the Israeli government has unilaterally and sneakily begun forcing patients who medically evacuate from Gaza to sign paperwork at the exiting checkpoints saying they will not and cannot return. None of the NGOs helping with the coordination of the medical evacs were informed by the entity or any governing body that this would happen. Ethnic cleansing aside, mothers are being forced to leave their children behind to travel with a sick child, and almost every family is being forced to leave family members behind. And now they're being told they'll never be able to see them again. Not that the Israeli government cares, but this again violates international law, and given the document was signed under duress, it is unenforceable, meaning it's not worth the paper it was signed on. But not again like Israel gives a fuck. Further, this jeopardizes the entire medical evacuation enterprise in multiple ways. 1, countries will be much more reticent to accept medical evacs from Gaza. 2, all aiding countries will now be accused of being guilty of collaborating with Israel's ethnic cleansing crimes. And 3, this will upend Jordan's commitment to accept 2,000 patients and be blowback against Trump. This can stop as quickly as it started. Israel thinks we aren't paying attention, but of course we are. Pressure is needed on Israel to stop this illegal and sneaky practice. Thanks to our friend Abubaker and the Samir Project for sounding the alarm. So what did Abubaker have to say about this? Again, it's my job to reveal the truth, no matter the cost. I know many people have attacked me for this, but as a journalist, I know what I say. I can't let this ethnic cleansing scheme go past my pen. I know I'm probably the only one from Gaza talking against these organizations, but to be a journalist is to be a truth teller. For everyone who attacked me, may you learn from the lesson. Those who trusted me, thank you. Finally, Abubaker wants to leave a nice mark and give it all for his homeland within his accidental war reporting, because he's going to be a football journalist very soon. He was asked what his favorite football team was on the Electronic Intifada stream on Thursday, And he would not answer. He acted, what? I can't hear. Huh? He's trying to stay neutral. He doesn't want to give an answer. It was kind of adorable. You got to see that on the EI live stream from the other day. But, you know, this young man, go follow his Twitter account. He has been doing some live video reporting. You can see George Galloway had him on because some of his videos have just been, wow. He's reporting for Press TV. He's reporting for the Electronic Intifada. There's 2 aid workers who were confirmed to be killed, or police members that were trying to keep the area safe, killed. Here he is talking with Abby Martin. But I wanted to bring the prisoner that was released.
Stop scrolling Twitter.
No, it's just scrolling. I want to show one of his videos from where he is in one of the camps. Hold on, while he's walking. Here it is.
The 3 Israeli captives have been released. They are on the stage, delivering a message to the Palestinian people, talking about their experiences and the captivity of the resistance. So that's what we are witnessing at the moment. Just 1 minute or so, they will be handed over to RC vehicles, and then they will be taken to the occupied Palestinian territory. And Apache helicopter.
This is not one that I wanted. Actually, I wanted one of him walking through one of the neighborhoods. Here's one.
Streets inside Gaza. Of course, the street has seen great damage, great destruction, and I'm just walking around.
Let's look behind him.
The carnage, which is, of course, unbelievable. And at the same time, it's not only this, but because when you walk on the side or in one of the streets here in Gaza, what you are going to see is 2 things. The first is rubble, and the second is garbage, because the infrastructure has been struck and destroyed, and even all the buildings and houses, almost all of them have been hit by the Israeli military, and many villas here have also been demolished. Look at the carnage. It's unfathomable. It's insurmountable. Here's one of the banners.
This is Gaza City,
Palestine.
I would love to see what this looked like before, but it's only heartbreaking, honestly. I just wanted to share some of this. Please follow him. He's been doing some incredible reporting from on the ground and talking to actual Palestinians on the ground. I'm not crazy about some of the places that he chooses to write for and align himself with. I'll say that right now. But this kid is doing the work, and he doesn't want to be doing this work.
Just remember what the Intercept does to whistleblowers. That's all you got to remember. You know? Yes. So then just follow those resumes.
Okay, so this concludes our Fuck Israel portion of the program, because I'm sick of talking about it now, but I wanted to give an update from the people who are there about what they're experiencing and what Israel did to them, because we can't forget, and we've got to hold them accountable. Israel must be held accountable for what they're doing here and what they've done, and how they're now trying to steal the land with Trump's help. YouTube does not like when we talk about this. So if you like seeing stories like this, please support the media you want to see. The ways to do that are Cash App, $Indie News Network, Codashv.com/Indie News Network, PayPal.me/Indie News Network, and at our newsletter, INNnewsletter.com, where you can support monthly or annually with a subscription. But you can also subscribe free, and please do. We put out a daily update.
Whatever. You can keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen? 50,000 died, and now we know our mission. We form a militia, make Congress a prison. know why play civil when all these dead won't make you listen. What's more American than slaying your oppressors? What's more American than liberty or death first? God, I thought we were founded on abolishing the tyranny of those who would starve a village all to live empirically. And I regret that I have only one life to give for my cause now that I can see the cause so clearly. See, I want our leaders, regardless of party, to fear me.